right, what's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Biblical Hitmen. I'm your host, Steven. I'm here with Jesse. We got Taylor in the house. Joining us yet again is Justin, aka Doc Brown, the host of the Prometheus podcast, Prometheus Lens podcast. Forgive me for that, and the author of the Epic of Esau, which we're going to get into today. Super excited for it. Long waited. And folks, if it's your first time here, you're returning, you haven't done so already, and you're on the YouTube side of things, smash that subscribe button, like the show, share it with your friends, and drop a comment down below about what you think about the episode. Also, you can check us on audio. You can check us on Spreaker, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. But Justin, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, man, thank you for having me back, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's good to have you back on. Sorry for all the little hiccups in the beginning there, but super excited, man, to have you on. You've been busy, dude. You've been busy. You've been jumping around on a lot of shows, going over, your book. Tell us a little bit about it and where the audience can find you.
Yeah, man. I always go too hard. It's like go hard or go home. I never go home. I finished the book, so I was like, hey, man, I'll just start going out on all these shows and kind of promote the book. And I can handle, 2 or 3 recordings a day, 3 or 4 days a week. Yeah, I'll just get it over with. Oh, it about killed me. I'm winding down now.
Right. It'll run
I ain't
you
as
down,
young
man.
as I used to be. 40 now, man.
It's crazy, I mean, the amount of work you put into things, especially having, a 9-to-5 job, right? Like pretty much all of us. It is a lot of work, man. I give a lot of credit to you, and I have a lot of respect for what you do and all the hours and editing and, just content creating, right? In general, it takes a lot out of you, and it's awesome, man. Your book is awesome as well. I've read it about 1.5 times, if that makes any sense. But it's a fun read, folks. It's there's a lot of interesting takes in it as well. I really enjoy how you kind of created a foundation, at first, and then you came in with the final act, which I love books that kind of build you up for that, right? So, but if you don't mind, just telling the audience a little bit about yourself and where they can find your shows and websites and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, name's Justin Brown. I'm just a 9-to-5 knuckle dragger, man, just like everybody else. Go to work, come home, pay my bills, but I've always been a history nerd and a Bible nerd, and around 2012 got red pilled and started finding all this cool, fascinating, supernatural, and weird stuff in the biblical text. And once I started seeing all this stuff, I started making connections with all these other historical events and ancient mythology, and I always loved that stuff. So I just started connecting all these dots, man. And once I started doing it, it just confirmed my faith and solidified it. It excited me and drew me closer to God. And I wanted to share that with other people. I was like, if I get this excited about it and think this is so fascinating, surely there are others that share this passion with me. So I just started doing some podcasts with some friends, and that ended up branching out to doing my own solo show. Instead of just looking at the Bible, I looked at ancient history, mythology, lost civilizations, cryptids, all those fascinating subjects that we love to dive down and just filter them through a biblical lens. And that show was the Prometheus Lens podcast. It's just a little over a year old now, and that led to me writing my first book, The Epic of Esau, The Birthright and Seed War. But anywhere you can consume content, man, Apple, Spreaker, Spotify, YouTube, all those fine establishments, anywhere you can consume that kind of stuff, you can find me. Just search up Prometheus Lens Podcast, and the same for all the socials. I'm usually putting out 2 or 3 reels a day and keeping you guys with some good infotainment.
Oh yeah, man. What was it like? What was the journey like writing it? What was that like?
Honestly, it was weird, but of course I have nothing to judge it by. It's my first one, but started finding all this cool stuff, and I just thought it would be a cool podcast at first. So I reached out to my buddy Bo Kennedy from the Bump podcast, and was like, "Hey man, I found this, this, and this, and this is like the first few little things that I found." And I was like, "I think it'd be a pretty cool podcast. You want to, talk about it?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, man, that'd be awesome. What do you want to call the show?" And I was like, I don't know. Let me think about it." And he come back. He's like, "I know what I'd call it. I'd call it the Epic of Esau, because I was making correlations with the Epic of Gilgamesh at that point in the beginning."
Right.
And I was like, "Hell yeah, dude, that's awesome. Run with that." And
Pretty sick title. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I was thinking about it earlier. It's a great book title.
Yeah, I definitely couldn't take credit for it, but and the show just blew up, man. And it was honestly like in November. And Bo's been podcasting for like 5 or 6 years. He's built a good following, and it was funny. Like around I think it has to be in January because it's at the start of the new year. But he reached out to me. He's like, "Hey man, I just got my Wrapped stats from Spotify." He said, "You're not going to believe this." He said, "Your episode was only like 2-3 months into the year." He said, "But it made my top 5 for the year in downloads." I was like, "Oh, dude, that's awesome."
Dang.
And I had all kinds of people reaching out, like, "Hey, dude, you should write a book. Hey, dude, you should write a book." And I just had so many people reach out and talk about how fascinating that show was and how I should do a book. So I was like, "Oh, hell, I'll try to write a book. I've always wanted to." And honestly, the first sit down, I mean, I plowed through like 6 chapters in one sitting.
Wow.
I mean, it was
you were
crazy.
in the zone, dude.
Yeah.
You were locked in.
And then after that, it just like,
yeah.
I hit like a writer's block or just lost inspiration. And then, so I would find something cool. I'd write a chapter. A couple weeks would go by, I'd write another chapter. So and then it strung out. And I started doing shows talking to people about the stuff I was finding, kind of like in live time as I was finding this stuff. And it strung out for just a little shy of 2 years to get it all finished. But like I said, the last few months of this past year, I told myself, I got a couple weeks off from work for Christmas break. I've been going around for the past year talking about this book, and everybody's asking me, "When's it coming? When's it coming?" I was like, I have to just focus and get this thing done, man. So that's what I did. Just my Christmas break that I had 2 weeks off work, I just pounded the rest of it out.
Right. Folks, if you're not familiar, Doc Brown, he's probably one of the main proponents for like talking about Bigfoot in the Bible and making some connections there. I haven't been in the community that long to really tell who's been talking about what, but I remember listening to you on the Tinfoil Hat podcast. It's had to be maybe 2 years ago now or something, probably in the middle when you were writing the book. And you were talking about the Esau story with Jacob. I reread it again, right? Like going through your book, and it's a very interesting story, right? And knowing how the church is today, I feel with the idea of making a comparison with Bigfoot and Esau, that the churches, they look at it as a heretical, right? Like heresy almost, right? And so what's that like? Have you had any like backlash or anything like that, or anyone kind of trying to tell you you're wrong or this or that? You know how the church is, so it's tough. I just wanted to see what you've interacted with.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I've had some people that are open-minded and willing to entertain new ideas and new thoughts, really praise the book and say, like when you go to Amazon and look at my reviews, which the book's done awesome. And that's one thing I want to say. God's blessed that thing because, I'm a nobody, a small podcast, never wrote a book. And I told myself, I'm like, if I sell 100 copies, that's my goal. If I sell 100 copies, dude, I would be tickled pink. I'd be happy with that. I sold 100 copies within the first week.
Oh, wow.
But so it's working on 500 now.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah. So, but by reviews, you encourage everybody that buys it to give a review. Most people don't, but I'm guilty of that myself. But there's like last time I looked, there was like maybe 15 or 18 reviews, but a large majority of them that I noticed says, if basically along this lines, if you are comfortable in your theology and you think you got the answers and you got it figured out, don't read this book. You're not going to enjoy this book.
I mean,
but if you are
open-minded,
right? If you're open-minded and you're willing to entertain new ideas and have yourself stretched and learn new things, and so even one person said, if you're ready to hold the skeleton key to unlock the rest of Scripture and realize how little you know,
right,
you're going to thoroughly enjoy this book.
Yeah. No, those are great comments.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I was happy with that, but I've had a lot of people push back.
Of
course, the Bigfoot community.
I know.
Guys, they're like, no, it's physical. You're insinuating that it's spiritual.
It's both.
Yeah, exactly. And then, and of course, I've had some, really closed-minded Christians, say, oh, that's laughable. That was hyperbole. That was poetic language, and things like that. But honestly, the most pushback that I've gotten and being called a heretic and getting some people tore up is one chapter. That's a 15-chapter book, but I have one chapter on the serpent seed. And that, boy, I don't know what it is,
yeah, they're gonna get
but
me.
that is a hot button topic that gets people tore to pieces.
It really does.
I'm glad you said something because, people watching right now, obviously, right, our followers and stuff, that we got a lot of backlash when we had on Joy Pugh, right? And we were getting into that serpent seed theory, which I do want to touch on it later on. And it's something that's outside of an echo chamber. It's something that's outside of, the normal traditions of the elongated amounts of teaching from just generation to generation to generation.
In the modern church, though, I mean, if you go back and you look at all the ancient writings, that they all point to that. We can debate whether it's real or not, and I say that even in the book. I mean, you've read it. I say we can debate all day long if this is real or not,
right?
If it's physical or if it's spiritual, but we cannot debate that was the beliefs and the thoughts of the people of that time.
And that's important, man. And what's funny? I saw a video. Wes Huff even talked about it on on someone's show, big show. And so, but he was getting into like the Book of Enoch, the first one, right? Because there's other writings that are Enoch that are like Gnostic in a way, or they kind of, the first Enoch is the one that was, the first century Jew was reading. It was before, the New Testament was made and all that kind of stuff. But
I think Wes even says that 2 and 3 might be forgeries. I think I heard him say
later writings.
The whole main point of his conversation with the guy is that, the Jews did believe in these supernatural things, and that's why I really wish I could just take my Bible, go back in time, and just kind of flip through the pages a little bit with Paul and be like, hey, dude, like interpret it, or I need perspective now, something like that. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it says even like back then too, with the whole serpent seed thing, I tend to believe beguiled, it had some sexual nature to it if you break it down. And so,
right,
it's not some Sunday school like, oh, kids, Adam and Eve ate an apple and then just.
Well, I talked to an independent fundamental Baptist friend of mine, and he was telling me what he thinks of the English version of the Bible. When we like to kind of dig deeper, right? We like to go and look at the Hebrew or look at the Greek, right, and get the meaning of those words. A lot of Christians believe that the English translation is straight up like it's untouchable. It is the perfect and holy
divine inspired word of God, and every word is perfect, unchanged for all eternity. Those are the people you can't talk to and reason with.
Yeah, right. Well, and I was having a conversation. It was a really good conversation with them. It actually went on for like an hour. But I would dig deeper into the Hebrew roots and the meaning of certain words. Just for example, Genesis 6, right, and relating that to that other side, and they were like, oh, Hebrew's like, massively misinterpreted. And I'm like, what? How? There's Hebrew, scholars, there's Hebrew people that study the language, I get it, it's a very old language, but they're pretty accurate. So,
Yeah.
but so Doc, I love how you went through your book, man. And kind of where I'd like to start is going through like the cultural connections with Bigfoot in our society today, in our world. And the thing you kind of talk about is the wild man. So kind of open that up for us. And, it's a fun thing to get into because,
Yeah.
it's massively, covered
Yeah.
throughout the whole world. So,
And honestly, man, I'm glad and thankful that you said, you started off and you laid a foundation and all that, because honestly, that was my intention. I didn't want to assume that people knew the backstory of Bigfoot, and with that, the people that are not big Bigfoot enthusiasts, I wanted to give them kind of a crash course and show them that these other ancient traditions and quote unquote mythos and stories and legends talk about this wild man. And if we take the context of that wild man, all the descripting factors, what it does, all the stories, and I wanted to stack them beside our modern term Bigfoot and show them that this is the same thing. This is the same entity or creature. And so I wanted to lay that foundation and build up this house from the bottom. And that was honestly my whole intention of that. But one of the resources that I used that I found really good, because I was never a real big Bigfoot enthusiast. I had the general 30,000 foot view of what Bigfoot was and things like that. So I was not one of these guys that was well versed in Bigfoot and heard all the testimonies and stories and listened to the Bigfoot podcasts and read all the literature, and I was not one of those guys. So this was kind of a learning experience for me as well. But I went through, because my big thing that I love doing, anybody that follows my shows and stuff knows that I love comparative mythology. I'm a firm believer. If you see the same type of story throughout the world, throughout time, throughout culture, I'm not a coincidence theorist. There has to be some kind of truth rooted into those stories, or why else did it transcend the globe and time and all these cultures?
Right.
Because there has to be something to it.
Absolutely.
And that's what I found digging through this. But it was called by many different names. Of course, it's going through many different times, many different cultures and tongues and cultural lenses. So I just started looking for common themes. I started looking for wild men or hairy men or beasts, and things like that match these descripting factors. And I did. I found it everywhere. When you go to China, they called it the urine. It was this hairy monster, beast creature that was humanoid and was intelligent and roamed the woods, and people had encounters with it, and it would sometimes it was benevolent, sometimes it was evil, and it would raid people's houses and villages and take their animals and eat their animals and livestock. When you go into Europe, they called it the woodwose, or the wild man.
Right.
And the same thing. They were covered in hair. They lived out into the woods and the wilderness. They would raid towns, steal livestock, kill livestock, and even abduct women and rape women. And they would give birth to these little hairy beasts. And you go to the Americas, you have Bigfoot. That's the modern term. The Native Americans called it Ishtipapa, and all these other different names. And I even list that in the book. I have like a huge list of just all these different names that just the natives called it.
Orange-haired man.
Yeah, and then you have the harried, six-fingered giant legends of the Native Americans, and they called them the Sitika. They were huge giants covered in hair, red hair, with six fingers and six toes. So
they used to build like little pits too for them. Like they used to go after them. And then have spike pits, like antagonize it, and then have them go and fall on that, and that's how they would kill them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I even think like the Celts and the Druids, right? Is there traditions with that too? What's the tradition where they celebrate in the street? It's almost like a parade of like demonic Bigfoot.
Oh, I know, dude, for real.
Yeah, when you go into Sardinia, the island of Sardinia during the winter solstice, they have this thing, and they call these hairy beasts the Mathones. Oh, excuse me, or the Methanes. And these guys dress up. They cover themselves in black goat's fur. And they dance and parade through the town with hundreds of copper bells strapped to their backs. And while they do this, they chase the women. And then also you go up into Europe, you have Krampus.
Yeah.
He's this hairy beast covered in hair, and he abducts children. And then even a lot of the Christmas cards and stuff you see, he's also sexually promiscuous, like a lot of these wild men stories and wild men fertility gods. There's lots of Christmas cards that you find. They're like erotic in nature, where Krampus not only comes in to discipline the bad children, he'll discipline the bad women too. And it shows women waiting up in lingerie while their husband's at work on the night shift, waiting for Krampus. And
jeez,
and he'll be pulling out his whip, and she's looking like she's really enjoying it. You know what I'm saying?
Oh man, it is wild, all the traditions and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, it seems to be a phenomenon that's been going on for a very long time.
Yep.
Very long time.
Doc, what's your take on? Sorry to interrupt you, Steve.
No, you're good, buddy.
What's your take on like not catching them? I mean, I've seen some trail cam footage and trail cam pictures that look pretty convincing, but everybody always says the same thing. Like Elon says, the UFO, they're very subtle. I haven't seen them. There's no evidence. What's your take on like the hard to get evidence, the hard to get picture evidence of Bigfoot?
Honestly, with that, and I talk about it in the book, I think it's like we talked about. I think it might have been pre-roll or maybe toward the beginning of the show. I can't remember, but how it's not just this, it's not just that, it's this and that. It's usually a combination of things. Usually things are not that cut and dry, and I think that is the case with this Bigfoot. Do I think there's some physicality to it? Yeah, and with that could be a lost remnant still roaming, or it could be an interdimensional type thing that can temporarily have physicality, and that's why you see it phasing in and out. There's also the whole spiritual side to it. I think if you go with the context, they were hairy giants. And you get into the whole Esau thing. Esau marries into Nephilim giant clans and breeds with them. And these giant clans were from the land of Mount Seir. And when you break into the etymology of the Hebrew, Seir means hairy. So he marries into known Nephilim giant clans who their names identify them as hairy anyway.
Wow.
And then you hear the stories about the Iraq guys. They're walking through the mountains, and out of this cave comes this hairy, covered in hair giant. You know, was he a remnant, a leftover that was survived into modernity, possibly?
Right.
And I think that's what it is. You have this feral race of giants, and like anything, DNA doesn't get stronger with time. It dissipates, and you have interbreeding, and this gene is probably alive and well through humanity today. It's become so weak that it doesn't manifest in hair like it used to. It's not as strong.
Right.
And
I've seen over time they shrink down too. Like they used to be like really, really tall, like, but now they're shrinking down to like normal human like size nowadays, to where, we can't really tell as much. What are your thoughts on that? Like, I think it's like, we started out a lot taller too. Humanity and everything else and all the Nephilim were way taller.
Well, it's like a degeneration or a de-evolution, I guess.
Yeah, and when you go to the book of Enoch, it says that these giants, these Nephilim, when they die, their spirits are cursed to be demons and wander the earth until the end of time, until judgment. So
Right.
if these, you know, Bigfoot, wild men, hairy, feral giants, when they died, their spirits remain. And so would they not choose a familiar form
True
Mm.
that.
and
Right.
manifest? And that's what we're seeing,
Right.
these, spiritual entities phasing in and out of reality through portals. And the thing
Right.
was too is when you go into the biblical account, one of the races born through this union of Esau with these giants, he birthed Amalek, and Amalek births the Amalekite race. You break into the etymology of that name, that means the blood lickers.
Huh.
And
Jeez.
when you get
Right.
into Eleazar and you get into the writings of Rashi, these Jewish rabbis and their writings, they talk about that they were known sorcerers.
Oh wow.
So you have that aspect too. They're phasing in and out of reality, and that's why God told his people, don't leave anyone alive. Kill every man, woman, and child.
Yeah.
And in Rashi's writings it says because they were known sorcerers, they were known shape shifters. He uses that word in his writings.
Wow.
They were
Man.
known shape shifters and would
Oh.
shift into animals to evade capture.
Yep.
And that's why God said, "Kill every man, woman, child,
What's
and
that sound
animal."
like? That
And
sounds
you-
like a skinwalker.
Yeah, of course. And then the thing is too, like, people get upset. They're like, well, why did God back in those days kill like the women, men, and children and blah blah blah? That's why, because they weren't human, period, like anymore.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Like there's Nephilim bloodlines mixed with people who like are skinwalkers now, because, in order to be a skinwalker in the native tribes, at least, they had to kill the person they loved the most and do a whole bunch of satanic rituals. So I'm just like, that's why he has God's ways are higher than man's ways. So of course he knows that, but the general populace nowadays are just like, oh, God was an evil person and blah 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 blah. He just slaughtered everybody for this. I'm like, you got to break it down, and you got the answers, like, and
Yeah.
in your book they can be like, yo, this makes sense,
Absolutely. I agree.
So,
I agree, man. The book is for everyone,
Yeah.
Like it's not just, for Christians. I think it's a way to help Christians kind of be or become aware that wow, I thought I knew
Yeah.
what scriptures were talking about. It
Mhm.
kind of it opens up that light to getting you to want to dig deeper in the Bible, getting you to want to kind of make some connections that are out there in the world, and it'll help
And
us.
it's a skull key, man, because it was a
Yeah.
learning experience for me as I was going through it. It was a journey for myself. And once I found this story, this narrative, this meta narrative, interlayered into this Bible of ours, it answered so many ambiguous questions that I had. And I'm a guy that has read the Bible front to back many times throughout my whole life. I've read the ancient biblical text. I mean, I'm constantly in Logos Bible software, breaking into the Hebrew. I mean, I ain't saying I'm anybody special, but I'm a nerd. I'm a Bible nerd. And there was all kinds of stuff that just left me scratching my head that I was like, man, why? Why is that? That don't make sense. I mean, why would they just put that there and just leave that there? That makes no sense. But once I found this stuff, man, it was the skeleton key that
Mhm.
unlocked it, and it tied everything in hand in glove. So 90% of the stuff that I thought was just ambiguous, didn't make any sense, or left me confused, it answered all of that and tied up so many loose ends. And it completed this, what in my mind was kind of a fractured story, and made it flow like water, man, from front to back.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Can we-
It definitely helps with like your apologetics.
Yeah.
Like it helped me. I mean, I never would have had an answer for like what Taylor was talking about, like the whole genocide claims, right? On God, but it's important to want to figure out the answers to these questions.
Yeah, and it's crazy because what they teach us in, basic church nowadays, like so many Christians are like way down here, and we should be knowing way more. Some witches and warlocks know more than we do on stuff, and that's not okay, man. Like, like I think a lot of Christians don't want to be open-minded. Unfortunately, I feel like they have a one-track mind. It's either black or white. There is no in between. We can't be like that, especially
Right.
when we got the adversary, the devil, looking to kill, steal, and destroy, and just look for any avenue, because ignorance is not bliss, man. Just because you don't know the stuff going on, it's just like, just because you don't know a law doesn't mean you can claim ignorance. And that's how it is in the
Right.
spirit realm, So we have to be vigilant. We have to be, be watchful as watchmen and warn the people. And this is exactly what God has called you to do, I believe, with your book. And I believe we're coming
No
into a
doubt.
time where we're living that, this information is becoming out there. The truth will be revealed, and it's out there, man. Like, so people can't claim ignorance no more. We got all this technology out here, and people can't be blinded now. We have to study to show thyself approved and do the homework. And I believe your book is like a huge stepping stone for Christians to kind of be like, yo, just kind of step back and look at it for what it is, and that makes sense.
Certainly, it certainly makes it more interesting than what everybody's been told. And speaking on ignorance, can you go, Doc? Can you go over the verse where it talks about like Esau being born? What does it say exactly?
Yeah, Esau, that's in Genesis 25, the birth. And it says the first one came out red, covered in hair from head to toe, like a hairy cloak.
Yeah.
And
So
his name was Esau.
So speaking on that verse, I was watching a video the other day of a young man that goes around. He's a Christian young man, and he goes around and he talks to everyone. But he had stumbled upon, and probably on purpose, a hut where the Hebrew Israelites were outside of a college campus or whatever, and they got their microphone and they got the guy to the next to him with the Bible. He's flipping through verses and he's going, and it feel like they try to twist scripture to fit their narrative, and they try to say, I remember he was trying to say that Esau is proof that's the Caucasian lineage. What do you have any take on that? What do you think about that?
Yeah, they think the white people are like the devil because they're like, they think we're the serpent seed line, like because we're white.
He specifically says that the Hebrew Israelite specifically says Esau is proof that white man is a savage beast, and that's where our lineage comes from. Is what he's saying.
And like you said, anybody can take any scripture.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, honestly, any intelligent person or a quick-witted person can take any scripture and twist it to what they want, and knowledge bomb you with all kinds of random stuff that sounds right.
Yeah,
right.
Make it feel good words.
Exactly. And that's what a lot of people do. But the thing is, you have to, get your context. You got to read the verses all the way around it. You can't just go off that one verse. You got to look at all the other stories with Esau and whatever the subject matter is, and get a fuller context, because people can. If someone has an end goal in mind or an idea, they can take any one, sometimes maybe even two, and take those scriptures and just manipulate and twist that thing like a Laffy Taffy or a pretzel to make it what they want it to be. And if you are not studying to show thyself approved and know your stuff, you can be deceived. Yeah. And what they do is they say, oh, he come out red. Oh, they're talking about the rosy cheeks.
Yep, the skin.
It didn't say rosy cheeks. It said he was covered in red hair.
Yeah. When I told my
from
friend
head
that,
to toe.
When I told my friend that, he was like, "Oh yeah, it's just a hairy guy." I was like, "No, I'm a hairy guy."
Yeah.
I'm a hairy guy. Look, it's from the forehead to my ankles. Okay, look, listen.
Yeah. And I even had somebody that follows me on Instagram, and I ain't gonna mention names, but they just recently followed me. And this person it's a female, and she is white as white can be. But it doesn't matter what I post. It doesn't matter. She has a very long-winded comment telling me how I'm wrong, how she's got it all figured out. And without fail, it is the craziest, off the wall, stuff. And
It's probably
at
that.
first, I tried conversing
Yeah, I know.
with this woman, and she when I posted about Esau, that's what she said. She said, "Nope, Esau was the white race, and that's the devil's seed, and God's chosen people is the black people, and and all this kind of stuff."
John
And she
3:16.
It's not
and she
racist.
started throwing out all this
That's
kind of
not
stuff,
racist at all.
and just all these outlandish claims. And so
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'll humor you. Where's your references? You said this, this, and this. Where's that at? What book? Where can I find it? Because I'm a contrarian. I'm not going to take anybody's word for anything. I have to read it for myself.
Yeah.
Oh, everybody knows. Oh, there is no reference. Everybody
Oh my
knows.
gosh.
Source,
It come right out of
trust me,
Satan's
bro.
mouth.
Yeah.
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 And everything I post, it's like that. And so I just finally give up. I don't even respond to that person. But I noticed here recently, somebody that follows me, they started commenting and trying to argue with her. And it's like they'll figure it out just after a few exchanges with this person. But they
I
were
have a
like,
feeling I know
"You're
who
white
this
as
is,
white
too.
can be." That's what somebody said in my post. They said, "You're white as white can be." So are you saying you're the serpent seed?
I
You
had
know,
an
Yeah,
argument
exactly.
with a black
She is.
Israelite on that, and I told him, basically this. I told him John 3:16. He came for all people, male and female. So that
Right.
includes every freaking skin color.
Well, we had
Racism. You can't go.
Yeah.
There's no racism in heaven, dude. Like, it's just so blasphemous.
Yeah,
Like,
when we
to
had
think that.
Brian on, he was Demon Racers. He was saying, preach the gospel to all creatures, right? So, and it's like the gospel's not just for one type of people or lineage
the
or
black
whatever
people,
you want to
Stefan.
call it, right? Oh gosh.
Only, not us white people, apparently.
You know what I like to do with comments like that?
Ignore
I
them.
like to like it and
Yeah,
then
that's what I
love
do
it.
now.
I like it, love it, and then take it back.
Pray
So
for them.
they'll get like the notification of it, and then they go there and they're like, "Wait, what? Did he not?"
He did.
like
He
it?"
obviously didn't understand
like-
what I was saying. That's probably what they're
Right.
thinking.
Oh,
because
gosh,
he's white,
man.
probably.
Yeah.
But
Well,
the
hey,
thing
let-
is, too,
let-
is like you have multi-layered stuff.
Yeah.
Just like I said, it's never this or that. It's usually this and that. And Scripture's like an onion. It's got multi-layers.
It's like
Do I think the story of Esau and Jacob was historically true? I think so.
Yeah.
But do I think there is also a meta or micro narrative? Oh, yeah. I believe that 100%.
What do you mean by
And
that?
when we,
That's
like
Meta or
it's
micro?
just, yeah, like you have layers within layers, stories within stories.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
being
And
There's more to
I
it.
think, yeah. So I mean, something might be historically true, but when the writer is writing it, they add these little details and caveats to pull you back to another story that's similar and shows you a narrative within a narrative to connect everything in a seamless line and to draw your mind back to other things. And some scholars call this like the law of first mention. They'll use certain words to draw your mind back to certain events. That way you make a connection and like,
Right.
oh, okay, that's connected to this in a meta narrative,
right.
So like when you have the cursing in the garden, he said, I will put enmity between her seed and thy seed. He was talking to her and the serpent. They both will have a seed. They will be at enmity with one another. Then what does he say? One will bruise one's head and the other will bruise the other's heel.
Right.
This is in the book of Genesis.
And even
Not
in,
just
in that
a few
part of
chapters.
yeah,
And I was
in the-
just going to say,
sorry.
just a few chapters later, what happens? This isn't the same book, just a few chapters later.
right.
Esau's born. The first one comes out red, covered in hair from head to toe like a hairy cloak.
Bigfoot.
And then the second comes out clutching the heel. And the verse before that, the angel of the Lord comes to Rebekah and says, 2 nations, 2 peoples are within your womb, and they struggle together within you. There's enmity between the 2.
Wow.
Right. I
One
think they
will be
were-
stronger than the other,
Yep.
but the younger will rule over the older. So when Esau was born, his foot pushing on Jacob's head, bruising the head,
Mm-hmm.
and Jacob reaching up, clutching and bruising the heel. So it is a complete inversion and flip of the prophecy and curse given into the garden.
Wow.
And I speculate the book, and I say it's a speculation. If Esau was a serpent seed, in which all the ancient writings point to that, they say he was born with a serpent's brand and marking. that his guardian angel was Samael, the viper of God, the angel of death, that he reached in and made sure his seed come out first, because that way he would get the birthright and be the ruler, the next in line. So the angel of the Lord comes and warns Rebekah and says, hey, I know it's customary for the firstborn to get the birthright, but in this case, the younger is going to get the birthright, because we know the devil's going to go in there and try to flip the prophecy from the garden of Genesis 3:15 on its head. Right. So, Rebekah, it's your duty to make sure you do everything in your power that the chosen seed is the one that rules.
Right. And I think that's why she made such an effort, right?
Yes.
To tell Jacob, hey, you got to get this birthright. Like,
yep.
This is not going to be good. I've screwed up. It's almost like she was, stressed and pressured. And you also talk about it in your book where you mention Rebekah and her side of her family, right? And the paganism and, who they pray to and stuff. Just kind of like dig into that for us a little bit.
Okay. And I'll say this outright too, because I know some people be like, you're making stuff up. It don't say nothing like that. And I, in the book, I tell you, if I'm speculating or giving you a hypothesis, I say, hey, this is my opinion. This is pure speculation. But here's the verse, copy and paste for you to read. You don't even have to look it up. I do the legwork for you, or at least try to, and show you. This says this, and this says this, and that forms my opinion here like this. So, I mean, I try to tell people when I'm speculating. But when you read Rebekah and her family history and story in the book of Genesis, in your 66-book canon, it says that when she was acquired, Eleazar, the cupbearer, the servant of Abraham, was sent to the land of Haran to acquire a wife for his son. So Eleazar goes to Haran and finds Rebekah by the well. They bring him home and says, my master son is coming of age. I'm looking for a wife. And I was told to come here to the land of his father's people to acquire a wife. And he serves the Lord Yahweh. Basically, I'm paraphrasing here, but we're interested in your daughter. I think your daughter would be a good match. Well, her father replies in Genesis, he says, this Yahweh you speak of, I can neither speak good nor evil. So that shows you they didn't even know who Yahweh was.
Right.
They served other gods there.
Right.
And when you go into the history and the archaeology of the land of Haran, they served many gods, but they were really big into fertility gods and fertility worship. And one of those gods that was well known and well worshipped was Samhain. But Samhain is not the exception. He's the rule. Like I said, when you find these common themes, they're universal. When you look at these fertility gods, 8 out of 10 were wild men.
Wow.
They were covered in hair from head to toe.
Wow.
Yeah. You look at Pan. You look at Faunus. You look at, I mean, I could go on all day. All these different gods were fertility gods covered in hair.
Yeah, the pagan gods are, the pagans are huge on worshiping, like, fertility gods of all types, like Ishtar and all these other, there's like I noticed there's like a male and a female version too. I don't know. It's just crazy because every pagan god is almost related to a fertility god of some sort. It's
interesting.
Wild.
It's kind of funny. Doesn't pagan just mean heathen in like
Yeah,
Latinism?
it means anything anti-god, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we can kind of like draw conclusions that it's possible with Rebekah
that they worship this god in her house.
Right. And
in the Epic of Gilgamesh, this was from that same land of Haran, right?
Oh.
And Enkidu, who in my opinion is another version, same person, same story, just kind of got their own spin to it, of Esau. This Enkidu was covered in hair from head to toe. He was a wild man of the field. He was known as a mighty hunter.
Wow.
I mean, everything matches up. But it says that when he was made, it says specifically that he was created as Gilgamesh's equal, the yin and yang, nature versus civilization, basically. And it says that Enkidu was created in the image of Sam Quain.
It's
And
like
Sam
they take
Quain,
the Bible story.
yeah, and Sam Quain was covered in hair, and it said that it was matted, and he was the god of the cattle. So when Eleazar goes to this same land, mentions their God, the father of Rebekah says, I can speak neither good nor evil of this God, but hey, you got a pretty good dowry, and this guy got some money, and looks like my daughter's going to be well took care of. Yeah, you have my blessing. And then she goes, and it says that she takes her handmaiden with her. So she was already a fully grown adulthood woman of mating age, breeding age, and was raised in this house that worshipped all these fertility gods, and Sam Quain, these hairy fertility gods, being amongst them. And then she comes into the house of Abraham and is presented as a husband to Isaac. So, and I said, now that's what we know. That's in the scriptures, that's in the archaeology, that's in the history. Now, where I speculate, because everybody wants to ask, well, how did Esau come out looking like that? Did she fool around with an angel or a fallen angel, or what happened here? And it doesn't come right out and say. So we have to put two and two together and do some speculation and some educated guesses. And that's what I do here. I look and I see there's a number 2 and there's a blank, and then we have a 4. I got to figure out what that other number is.
Yeah.
So by doing that, I speculate. I'm like, well, did she breed with Satan or a fallen angel physically? That's one possibility. Was this a spiritual conception, like the conception of Jesus, where the spirit or whatever hovered over and there's, some kind of spiritual thing? Could she have, prayed to a fertility god that she knew and grew up with to bless her womb, and this is what happened? That's another possibility. But that's the one that I think and that I went with and said, I believe that's how this happened, because when you go back to the biblical text, it says that Rebekah was getting old in age and was barren. She couldn't have a child. This was the number one thing a woman was supposed to do in this ancient times. Look at the story of Abraham. Sarah was getting old in age, couldn't produce him an heir. She was freaking out. What'd she do? She gave her handmaiden, Hagar, to Abraham, and Ishmael was a product. Ishmael was the firstborn. He was supposed to get the birthright. Well, what happens? God miraculously opens the womb of Sarah, and she conceives Isaac. So Ishmael is kicked out of the family, screwed out of his birthright, and it was given to the younger son. We have the same thing happening here with Esau. A woman that was barren, in my opinion, here's where I speculate, freaked out, thought she was about to be cast out, and another woman was going to come in to take her place to produce an heir. A woman in that position would have been greatly desperate, in my opinion.
Right.
So is it out of the question to think that this woman in her desperate need would pray to a familiar God that she grew up sacrificing to, praying to, worshiping, that fertility God that was covered in hair from head to toe, bless her womb? And that was the product of Esau. That's why Esau come out covered in hair from head to toe, looking just like these fertility gods. Or maybe even unbeknownst to her. And I even throw this out. This could be another alternative if you don't want to taint the legacy of Rebekah. Maybe unbeknownst to her, her handmaiden made a sacrifice in prayer to this fertility god to bless Rebekah's womb.
Right. Right.
You know, like
I
I
mean,
said, I mean,
It's
we know
messy.
we have a 2, we have a blank, and we have a 4.
Right. Right.
How do we get to the 4? And we have to be honest and try to figure these things out.
Yeah. It's so it fascinates me how this scenario completely mirrors what took place in the garden as far as Cain and Abel. I mean, it's like
It's
almost
another meta narrative.
it's almost so symmetrical, right? And who knows, maybe this was like the time in history where there was just there was a battle over, you know, the birthright spiritually, right? You've got this move, counter move, right? Satan, God, all this stuff going on, a lot of things going on that we can't see. And it makes me think, you know, God obviously made the ultimate counter move, right? With Jacob. What's your view on with God cursing you know, these certain people in the Bible? Why do you think kind of God is, because the Gnostics can look at that and go, well, he's the bad guy for doing that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It should be the other way around. And you know, what's your kind of view with that? Curious.
And see, I think that is once again the meta narrative. It's the little stories in the Bible that is mirroring the big overall arching story. That is our story, or his story, his story, his story,
Right.
our story. Because if you look at the angels, they were his first creation, not us.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go to the book of Job, when Job's questioning God and he finally gets fed up, and you remember he gives him that good old boy talking to, he says, where were you when I hung the stars? Where were you when I laid its foundations? You know, where were you when I done this and done that? Can you put a hook in Leviathan's nose? Chaos. Can you grab chaos by the nose and make it your plaything? You are a nobody. Who are you to question me? Where were you? And then during all that, he says, and he's talking about creation, he says, and where were you when I hung the stars, did this, did that? He said, and the morning stars, the sons of God, sang for joy at the sight of creation. So that shows you these angels, these angelic hosts, this divine council was there and witnessed creation. It says it right there.
Mm-hmm.
So when God is creating mankind, he says, let us make man in our image. I don't think that he's talking to himself. A lot of people want to take the aspect that this is the Trinity. He's talking to the other aspects of himself. No, I think he's talking to the angelic host, because anytime you see angels in the Bible, they look just like us. They eat, they drink, they sleep. They have a physicality to them.
Right.
Some of them even come down and bred with our women.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that is the us and our that God is talking about in that creation story. So they are, if you look at it in a family aspect, because God is the Father, we are a family. That is our elder brothers. We are the younger brother. Throughout all the meta narratives of the Bible, what does God do? He always chooses the younger brother, when the older brother should get the birthright.
Wow. And he chooses us
Versus the
over
angels.
the angels.
Yeah, we get a second
Don't you
chance.
know
They
ye
don't.
will judge the angels?
Dude.
That's why they're
Very
mad
good
at us.
point.
A lot of them too.
That
They
is the birthright and seed war.
Right. Wow.
And it makes a lot of sense with, like, when we go back to talking about why can't you catch Bigfoot on the cam, because it's spiritual and it's physical. Just like the angels, you can't see them because it's spiritual and it's physical.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very
Back
interesting.
to that, you know, I think it is more interdimensional.
Right.
It plays the physical part, it plays the spiritual part. You know, the interdimensional is kind of like that transmutation that happens. They'll materialize, dematerialize. What's fascinating is when I, you know, going through your book, I think you mentioned a story that Bo was talking about. He had this woman on his show. Kind of tell that story for us, because that makes me think almost that the sightings of
It-
Bigfoot, the whole phenomenon behind it, that these are either the spirits of the Nephilim
Mhm.
or they are the offspring of the
Yeah.
Nephilim.
I think they're the
And
offspring because they look like actual male and female faces with like hair and stuff. Like I think they're the offspring, but I don't know.
Yeah,
What do you think?
I think so too.
yeah. And before I go there, though, just to put a bow on what I was talking about earlier,
Absolutely.
this whole meta narrative, micro narrative that you see, it's throughout all the Bible, guys.
Mm-hmm.
It's throughout all the parables and stories. Do I think that some of these are they historical? Yeah, but it's an onion. Once again, there's so many layers. There's meta narratives all through that connect to the huge overarching narrative.
Mm.
Look at the parable of the prodigal son. Okay,
Yeah.
what happens? An eldest son that was supposed to get the birthright. Then you have a younger son that wants his inheritance now. Goes off, rolls in the pig filth, thinks that he's never going to be accepted back. But the father accepts him back with open arms, puts a signet ring of authority back on him. And what happens? The elder brother is pissed. He's jealous. And what does he say? I've been here the whole time. I've never left you. I've done what I'm supposed to do. This other brother has failed repeatedly, embarrassed our family name, rolled in pig excrement. But not only do you accept him back, you put a signet of authority, put a ring back on his finger, and hold this huge banquet and party and celebration. You've never had a party or celebration for me. Where's my party? Tell me that is not, with this new glasses, that if you didn't have this viewpoint that I just told you about earlier, tell me you don't see it now. That is the angelic beings, our elder brothers, and we are the younger brother who wanted our inheritance now, squandered it, and is accepted away in a signet ring of authority placed back on our finger.
Wow.
And they're mad. Tell me you don't see this same narrative with the parable of the wheat and the tares. What happens in that story? He says, a landowner sown good seed and walked away, and in his absence, the adversary sown his seed. And the workers come and say, Father, did you not sow good seed? But yea, tares grow amongst the wheat. And he said, the enemy has done this, and the tares are of him. Well, should we tear up the tares? No. Lest you tear up the wheat in pulling up the tares. No, let the tares grow amongst the wheat. And at harvest, we will pull them all up and separate the wheat from the tares
Judgment
and throw
Day.
the tares in the fire.
Yep, Judgment
Right.
Day.
Right.
The same parables retold, but it's with sheep and goats. What animal is killed and wrapped around them like a cloak to pretend they were Esau?
Goat.
A goat.
Oh, wow.
And goat
We have-
represents the Baphomet too. It's crazy.
And we have the same parable with the good tenant. What happens with the good tenant parable that Jesus told? A landowner has a piece of land. He rents it to a farmer, and they agree that they will look over the land, and come harvest time, the landowner would get the first fruits. Well, come harvest time, he sends his messenger. Okay, for those that are not following here, the landowner, God, the land, earth, the farmers that look over the land, this is the angels, the watchers, that was given dominion at the Tower of Babel. And who is the first fruits and the harvest that's being growing? It's us. Well, the prophets are the messenger. When the first messengers get sent, what do? They kill the messenger. What did they do? They killed the prophets.
Right.
And then he sent another messenger. They killed that messenger too. Then finally he says, I will send my son. They will not kill my son.
Oh, wow.
So
So
he sends
awesome.
the son, and they say, We will kill the son. He will know we mean business, and the land will be ours. That's Jesus, folks.
Right.
This is the same. All these stories, all these parables of the family, the birthright, the older brother, the younger brother, it is all flowing through it.
Yep.
Yep. That is so wild.
Well said.
The
Yeah.
puzzle pieces are coming.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, you know, I mean, I love seeing the Bible this way. There's something that gives me confirmation. There's something that I'm locked into it. A lot of people will say that the other way to look at those parables is basically saved and unsaved, right? And I don't. It's context, right? Like the whole Bible is all one huge, gigantic story, and there is a generalized context behind the whole thing from beginning to end. And to me, it only makes complete sense when you're getting into these parables in the way we're talking about them right now. You know, so it's fascinating, man, and it plays a lot into like our supernatural reality today. You know, I mean, if the end days talk about the, you know, as in the days of Noah, we're kind of like starting to see in our day and age like that, you know, with genetics and all this kind of what I think is unethical, like experimentation. It's weird, man. You know,
Mm-hmm.
things that we were thought impossible, you know, are becoming possible.
What they told us with mythology is actually real, man. That's the
It
crazy
happened in
part.
such a short amount of time too, which makes me think like, man, there's purpose. There's an agenda going on here, right?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
that fallen angel agenda.
Yeah,
Gotta
pretty
be,
much.
no doubt.
Remember, God
Lines right
said-
up with it.
Yeah, God said he would throw us into basically like a place of wolves, like on this earth. Like, you know, beware, man, because like this whole place is, while we're temporary on earth, man, it's like principalities of darkness and high places is what we're going against. So
Right,
Yeah.
right. And I think there's
And-
other. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and one of the things too that ties into this that I was totally ignorant to that opened up more, and it goes along with that, was the birthright. It's not just land. It's not just money and titles and animals. It's a whole, like you said, it's a whole spiritual thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the birthright is symbolically in these stories tied into the supernatural garments from the Garden of God.
Mm-hmm.
That is the birthright. And when you go into the extra biblical books, it kind of spells it out more for you. But you see it, like I said, in these meta narratives and woven into the Bible, our 66-book canon. But just like Jesus said, you know, when he said to his disciples, like, you always speak in these parables, you know, why? And he's like, because to them the mysteries have not been given.
Hmm.
The mysteries have been given to you, and you still don't understand.
Because they don't have the Holy Spirit.
And that's because a lot of people talk about, when I talk about some of this stuff, and, you know, that's kind of a stretch for some people and hard for them to grasp. They're like, no, if it was like that, it would just say it. It'd just come right. Why don't they just come right out and say it? Because that's not how God works, man. He lays the breadcrumbs out, and what does he tell you? He says, study and show thyself approved.
You gotta work for it.
And it says that it is the glory of God to conceal a thing, but the glory of kings is to search things out. We're to search it out and find it. He's not going to spell it out for you. But for the ones that are curious and that are seekers and pray and read through this stuff and read these extra biblical books for context, you're going to find it, because he left a breadcrumb trail. And this birthright, it talks about it, you know, in Ginsburg, Legends of the Jews, Jasher, some of these other extra biblical books. It says that at the fall, that Satan, when he was thrown down, he was demoted. His signet ring, like we talked about in that parable, that is the birthright. That is the supernatural garments of the garden of God. And that is the symbol of kingship, priesthood, and authority. And he gave dominion to Adam. That was the symbol of that dominion. And it says that when Satan was cast down, he was once the high priest of creation. And when you go to Ezekiel 28, and 99.8% of Christians will tell you that that's talking about Satan. And what does it say? You were in the garden of God. Every precious stone was your covering.
Oh,
Diamond,
wow.
beryl, onyx, topaz, jasper, and it lists them. And when you get into the Masoretic text, it lists 9 stones. But when you get into the Septuagint, it lists 12 stones.
Well tried.
This is a carbon copy, picture Polaroid of the priestly ephod that God's priests wore entering the holiest of holies. So it's painting Satan in a priestly role.
Yeah.
And then if you were like, oh, well, why don't it just say it? You know, it don't say that. You're assuming, you're stretching. Well, keep reading, because it says not only did, was he perfect in all his ways until iniquity was found in him and all this stuff. It says plainly, you profaned your what? Your sanctuaries. So not only is it painting him in a priestly role with this ephod, it flat out says he had a sanctuary and he profaned it. And then he was cast from the garden of God as a profane thing. And that garment, that authority, that dominion, that kingship and priesthood, that is the coverings that was given to Adam, to mankind.
Right.
We were given dominion. And those garments were passed to the eldest son. That was the birthright. Right. And when you get into the book of Jasher and these other books, it tells you flat out. It went from Adam, it went to Enoch, it went to Methuselah, to Noah. Noah had them on the boat and carried them through the ark. But once they come on the other side of the ark, Ham's rebellion, Ham stole those garments. And it went to Nimrod. And then through the book of Jasher and these extra biblical books, you find out that these 2 mighty men, Nimrod, the mighty hunter, faced off against Esau, the mighty hunter. And it said that hatred, resentment, and jealousy built up in the heart of Nimrod all his days against Esau. And he went out to hunt this hairy beast of a man to show who the real mighty man was. But Esau seen him and hid himself. And it says that he sprung out, cut off Nimrod's head, killed 2 of his giants, that was his bodyguards. And then it says he steals the garments to which Nimrod was able to prevail over all the nations. Wow. And then runs home, hides the garments in his house, and then enters into Jacob's tent. And here's where we pick up, and it dovetails perfectly into the trading of the birthright in Genesis that never made any sense to me. Because if you go back to that story, what does it say? It says he come in from the field exhausted. Yeah, he was exhausted, all right. He just killed the king, and he's on the run, and he just fought 3 giants.
Right, he's probably hurt.
Sustained some
Probably
life-threatening
beat
injuries.
up a little.
That's why he said, what use is a birthright to me when I am dead? Take it.
Wow. The whole thing behind the bowl of soup, man, symbolic for me. I think this is kind of what was playing out. And there's a couple of Hollywood films out there that actually kind of flashed to us.
That blew my mind.
The garments, right? So it's in the Noah movie, right?
The snake skin around his arm.
Skin kind of like around his arm. And there's another film, I think it's called Clash of the Titans. And so you've got this stuff going on Earth, but then you've got the gods up in the heavens, and Zeus is wearing this breastplate that's got jewels all over it, and none of the other subordinate gods have what he's wearing. It's clearly...
You remember that story, that the one son of the goddess that rebelled and was sexually promiscuous was cursed and turned into a beast?
Oh, there you go, dude. That's the mythology connections, right? With all of this stuff, man. I mean, you even get into it as well with the Epic of Gilgamesh. You get into it with that story between him and Kidu. Elaborate on that a little bit for us.
Yeah, just like I talked about in the book of Jasher, it says in there that these 2 mighty men, hated each other, wanted to prove who the real mighty man was, and they went to battle. Well, when you read the Epic of Gilgamesh, You have Gilgamesh, who a lot of historians and biblical scholars align with Nimrod, thinks it's the same guy, same story, just different names. And then you have Enkidu. Enkidu is a mirror image of Esau. He's covered in hair from head to toe, made in the image of Sam Quain. He was the mighty hunter of the field. He was the wild man. And Nimrod was this mighty hunter that dominated. No one could best him in battle or war or drinking. I mean, he was just the top dog. And this trapper in this story is out hunting and comes across Enkidu. And it says that he's basically hunting by this pool or this lake, and that all the animals go there to feed and to water. And then as he's getting ready to, kill one of these wild animals, it says that this Sasquatch-looking thing walks up. This beast covered in hair from head to toe, and is just huge. And it said that this trapper is frozen with fright. It's unlike anything he's ever seen before. And he's scared to death to even move. Afraid this thing's going to see him and just rip him to shreds. And it says he hides and waits, and that this beast drinks at the watering hole. All the other animals ain't afraid of him. He just hangs out with him, and they accept him like he's one of theirs. And then he turns and goes back into the wilderness, and then the trapper runs for his life and goes back to Ur and is in the taverns telling people, hey, man, I seen this freaking Sasquatch, this big old hairy beast of the field, man, and he runs with the animals like he's one of them. It's the craziest thing I ever seen in my life. This thing would probably best Gilgamesh, and the word started traveling around town, and Gilgamesh gets word of it. And he calls this hunter to his palace. And it's like, I hear some pretty tall tales, man. Tell me your tale. And he tells him, and it strikes fear into the heart of Gilgamesh. So, but he wants to prove that he is the mighty hunter and that nothing can best him. So now there's word traveling around, there's something that can best him. So he stacks the deck. He says, okay, go back to where you found this beast and wait for it. But go to the temple of Anana, take a temple harlot with you. And I want her to cast off her clothes and seduce this hairy beast of a man of the field. No man can turn away a woman. And make sure it's a prostitute from the temple of Anana, and I want her to cast a spell on him and weaken him. Have her lay with him for 7 days, 7 nights, nonstop. And once the 7 days is up, to remove herself from him, and the wilderness will reject him, and the woman will weaken him and bring him to me. So the trapper goes, temple of Anana, gets the prettiest prostitute, takes her with him, and carry out their plan. She removes her clothes. Enkidu ravishes her for 7 days and 7 nights, and then she leaves him. It says that Enkidu tries to return back to the wilderness with all the other animals, and that the animals reject him. He smelled different. Something was different about him. He was no longer accepted. And it says that the animals tried to run from him, and that he ran and tried to keep up with the animals. But it says in the text, it says it was as if his body was bound. His legs were heavied, and he was bound like a cord. And this is the same, terminology you get with witchcraft and spells. You bind something, and you hear it in the Bible too. Jesus said, if you are to plunder a strong man's house, you must first bind the strong man. So after the wilderness rejects him, and he's been weakened, he has nowhere to go. He goes looking for the harlot, and she's there waiting by the pool. And she tells him, they don't accept you now because you've outgrown them. You are now wise. Come with me to the city of Ur, where the wine never stops and the bread's flowing, and mighty Gilgamesh takes care of us and all this stuff, and he's the mighty king. No one can best him. And this hits his ego. And he says, I'm the mighty man. Take me to this Gilgamesh, and I will best him. and I will be your new king. So
Wow.
she takes him to Ur, and these guys have this epic battle. But in their version, Gilgamesh wins. But they end up becoming best friends, and then they go on all these epic adventures together.
Right.
And together
right.
they slay another beast of the field, the great beast Humbaba, the guardian of the cedar forest. And it said that this was in Mount Hermon, where the Anunnaki live, the place where the angels descended, according to the Book of Enoch.
Right. They're doing a what do they call it? Damage control with their stories, where they're gonna the narrative against God is going to, in a way, just going to plain out say it. They're going to lie in their stories, right? They're going to fabricate their narrative and their stories to exalt their god or gods, right? There's really no way kind of getting around that with them. The whole thing with Esau and the description of him, the goat's fur, orange from head to toe. There's a picture you have in your book. I forget what it is. It's a painting though, and I think it went back to where you talk about it, and you think it's possibly it could be Cain and Esau, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's that painting?
The Sistine Chapel.
Okay.
Michelangelo painted it in the Sistine Chapel. And I talk about it. I have a whole chapter called Wild Men of the Bible, because a lot of people that even maybe see Esau, as a wild man, they think he's the only one. But no, there's more. When you get into Nebuchadnezzar II and his cursing, God curses him. And what happens? He grows hair as long as eagle's feathers.
Dude, it's almost like nails. The werewolf. In the Bible.
A lot of people take that context with it, but with me seeing this Bigfoot thing, I kind of put it in that light, and I was like, and his nails grow long, and he roams with the beast of the field for 7 years,
right?
And it says that he even eats the grass like the oxen. I mean, he becomes a wild man, and then he returns after 7 years, but he returns more wise, and is a better king, and rules better, and gives praise and honor to Yahweh. Right. So he returns a wise sage. And you have that in the legends of the Woodwose. When you go into Europe, I mentioned that earlier in the show, but all their legends in Europe of this wild man, he's always this mystical, phasing in and out of reality, portals, and has magic, and has the power of prophecy. And all their legends and lore, they talk about it. Basically, they treat it kind of like a leprechaun. You got to follow the rainbow and get to the end and capture the leprechaun, and then you get the pot of gold. So they believed if you went into the woods and captured the wild man, that he was a magical creature with prophetic knowledge, that he would give you future knowledge and things you would benefit from it. And there were stories that they would lay out beer and wine to try to intoxicate the wild man, to capture it and exchange its freedom for prophetic knowledge and things like that. And you have that in the story of the Epic of Gilgamesh, because when they take him to the town before the battle, the temple harlot takes him to the tavern, because he's never had drink before. So she's done slept with him for 7 days, 7 nights, and weakened him with a spell.
Right.
Then takes him to the tavern. He's never had wine. And they get him heavily intoxicated before they take him to Gilgamesh. So Gilgamesh is fighting an already weakened guy with magic, and he's pissed drunk. So I mean, he really stacked. Yeah, he stacked the deck against him. So you have even kind of like hints of that wild man mythology kind of stuff in that story. But so they were like wise sages. So you even have a hint of that with Nebuchadnezzar. He becomes a wild man, goes into the wilderness, but returns a wise sage. And when you get into the Targums and the other extra biblical writings, they come right out and say that Cain's marking and cursing was that he was covered in hair. and
Oh.
was given a horn.
Right, right. And that plays
And
in too
that's
with
why,
the theory that Lamech, right,
yeah,
killed him in the field, right? Because
yeah.
might have thought he
And
was a
that's why he was
beast.
so afraid of being
Mm,
killed, because he looked like a beast.
Dude.
And like
dude.
you said, when you get into the Targums, it says that Lamech in his old age was growing blind and that his son would help him hunt. And his son seen this hairy beast in the field and told his dad where to shoot and shot and killed it. And when they got up on it, he realized it was his ancestor Cain. And there's where you
Wow.
get the
It's
story in the
wild.
Bible where he said, if Cain's cursing was times 7, mine will be 70 times 7 because I killed a man. And in my anger, killed a youth. Because it says that once he seen that it was his ancestor Cain and he was screwed, he killed his son for the mistake.
Wow.
And the medieval Rabbi Rashi, he said that he thinks it was a misinterpretation where it says that, cursed is any man times 7 who kills Cain. He
Lots of
thinks that,
sevens here.
yeah,
Right.
God was saying for Cain to fear not, that the revenge on his brother Abel's blood would come in the 7th generation.
Hmm.
And when you count 7 generations from Abel, you land right on Lamech.
Hmm.
Right, right.
So, yeah, I think Michelangelo was reading these books and these texts and painted them as the serpent seed in the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. Because when you look, it's like a little Easter egg, man. You have this hill, and inside of the hill you have a cave. And when you look in, I mean, it's unmistakable. It's a freaking Sasquatch in the cave. And like in his face, like yelling at him, it looks like, in the painting, is another head to toe hairy man, but with a single horn.
What?
I think it is the serpent seed. It is Esau and Cain painted in the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, and Michelangelo put it in there as like a little Easter egg for those with eyes to see.
Wow.
Right.
That's incredible, dude.
What gets me too with the serpent seed theory is, you've got this this war between bloodlines, and it's still going on today, right? And I think that's kind of like where you talk about the wheat and the tares. I kind of like don't know the full like understanding of what that like supposed to really look like. Are there blue bloods out there?
Yep.
It's kind of wild, man. It is so
Well,
wild. dude.
speaking of that, have you heard, Doc? Do you know who Demon Racers is?
Yeah, Brian.
You know Brian, right?
Yeah, I've seen him on a lot of shows and stuff. I actually reached out to him a while back. I'm supposed to be recording with him like within the next couple weeks, I think.
Dude,
Nice.
you two
Nice.
are like, that's a perfect episode because he has a narrative where we had him on not too long ago and he's doing his rounds and he's got some very wild stuff he says, all very fascinating. But he brought up the fact that he thinks that we are all of Cain's lineage because of our canine teeth. And there was dog-headed men running around pretty much all over at one point, and the Knights, that's the reason why there's a K in front of
K9.
Knights.
Mm.
Yeah, it's a very fascinating topic. It actually makes a lot of sense
sense.
if you're gonna talk about Cain actually, because I asked him this question. I said, does that mean that Cain was actually like hairy and like looked like a dog man or whatnot? Is what I asked him, and he said no. He thinks there's like bestiality and hybridization down the line. But what you're saying makes it kind of ties in with what he's saying quite a bit. It's very. What do you think about that? Do you think that we're, because of our canines, do you think that
We all can't be, because I mean you have it's the seed war. You have the
Right.
chosen line. You have the line of the woman, the line of the devil, and like we talked about genetics, they kind of breed themselves out, and like the theory of entropy, nothing gets better with time; it only degrades.
Right.
And the more you interbreed, the weaker and weaker it gets, and just like the parable of the wheat and tares, a lot of people thinks, you could tell those apart. They noticed it in the parable, but when you look at a picture, and I have pictures of it in the book, when you put them side by side, they're identical. You can't tell the difference. The only time you can tell the difference is come harvest time, because the wheat
Right.
bears fruit and it gets
Interesting.
heavy, and it bows. It humbly bows. The wheat stands proud and tall.
Mm.
And that's how you can tell them apart. And you can't tell till harvest time.
Well, that still kind of makes sense because so we're our DNA, we're degrading. We're really hairy. People look at my beard, look at your beard. You know, it still kind of makes sense a little bit. I'm not,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not
I
necessarily
mean,
seduced by it.
I see what you're saying, but I'm just saying that there has to be a remnant, you know, a pure bloodline, and that's why. But I'm not saying that. Hell, basically, we're all mutts. You know what I mean?
Right. That's
Yeah.
exactly
And
what I
maybe
think,
and maybe it went to hell after the Messiah, but that there had to be a perfected line until that time,
Right.
Right.
Christ had to
because the
come in
coming
some-
Christ had to be pure.
Right.
Yep.
And that's why he preserved the line.
Right.
And even with Noah, when you go into the etymology, once again, these Hebrew words have meaning and they're important, and they get muddied and lost in translation to English.
Right.
But it says that Noah was the only righteous man left.
Unblemished.
And people say, oh, he
Pure
was
blood.
he had no sin. No, it's talking about the blood. That
Blood,
Hebrew
yeah.
word, tamim.
Well, and real quick,
tamim
real
was
quick.
used in the sacrificial system
Yeah.
for the lambs without blemish.
Like when the Bible talks about Noah and it says that he was perfect in his generations, you know, they say like he's perfect and he's a man of like righteousness, but the Bible, and this is the thing with the other side, right? They always fall back to that the Bible interprets the Bible. And if I'm going to allow that to dictate how I'm going to think about this, you know, no man is perfect. Like
course.
no man is
Right.
perfect. We've all fallen short of
It's
the
all
glory
about
of
blood,
God,
man.
you know, and the Bible says that. So I'm going to let that interpret
There you go.
that scenario. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah, because I mean, it's according to what different English translations. Some say perfect, others say righteous, but that the Hebrew word there is tamim, and that same word was used, like you said, let the Bible interpret the Bible. That's also used talking about the purity of the blood of the sacrificial animals.
Wow.
They had to be tamim to be sacrificed and without blemish, and it's us doing that word association with Noah. He was the only tamim one left. And a lot of people that want to diminish the giant narrative, they'll be kind of facetious, and they'll say, well, if there was giants after the flood, that means God failed. You're implying God failed.
No.
And I'm like, well, you don't know the intentions of God. You know, God, I don't believe God
Right.
fails either, but I believe it wasn't to wipe them out. It was to level the playing field. It
Yes.
said
Reset,
Noah was the
just
only
reset.
one left.
I agree.
So it was like, okay, I'm going to level the playing field here. That way you don't choke out the chosen seed.
Right. Right.
Because otherwise,
Because it tells
Noah
you there
would've
was
been
giants on the earth in those days.
Right.
And also after. It's talking about the flood.
Mm-hmm.
Some survived. They went in their little portals and underwater kingdoms and all sorts of stuff, man. That's what I think.
Yeah, and even the legends of the Jews and stuff, they say that, like the writings of Abraham and some of the Targums and stuff, it says that Og rode on top of the boat, that Noah fed him through a hole in the ark, and it said that Og basically pledged his allegiance to Noah and said that if he would save him, he would be his servant, you know, and
I've heard
serve
that
the Lord and
before.
do all these things, and that he didn't hold up his end of the bargain. And then the writings of Abraham says that Noah's wife was Naamah from the line of Canaan, and it said that he told Noah to take her specifically so that the serpent's seed would be preserved through the flood to keep the prophecy alive and preserve the seed of the serpent to the end time.
Wait, Noah's wife was Canaanite.
According to this is not canon. No, this
Okay.
is the book of Abraham, or the
Okay.
writings of Abraham. They go in and say that's how the serpent seed lineage made it through the flood.
Right. For the
Was
second
that-
incursion. Yeah.
Yeah, that the Lord instructed Noah to take Naamah as wife to preserve the serpent seed till the end time. That way
Okay.
his word and his prophecy from Genesis would stay alive and remain true.
And
Right.
isn't there a Ham narrative with this as well?
Yeah, the uncovering of thy father's nakedness, because that's another misunderstood thing, and I talk about that in the book too. A lot of people, and like we talked about, there's so many things that don't make sense, or it's confusing. But when you start reading these extra biblical books and dive deeper into the Hebrew, you get the answers. And some of them are strange, some of them are shocking, and you're like, oh my God, what? But
Right.
it makes sense. And when you read the literature and go into the Hebrew, I mean, it's there. So that was one of those confusing things. It's like, if I was a kid and been at school all day and I come home, my father drunk whiskey until he was pissed drunk and passed out naked, and I get off the school bus and come home and see him laying there, how is that my fault? How am I going to be cursed? That ain't right.
You're gonna be cursed with a bad father.
Yeah. So, but when you get into that story, what does it say? It says that Ham uncovered his father's nakedness. So when you go into Leviticus chapter 18, it says in there plainly, to sleep with thy father's wife is to uncover thy father's nakedness.
Bible, interpret Bible, right? Let's just,
Yeah.
I
And once again, you see it repeated. This
Yeah.
was an act of rebellion in the ancient world. Absalom, when he run David out of the kingdom, first thing he did, he pitched a tent on David's house, went into all the concubines in the sight of all of Israel. Reuben, to take over the family, slept with his father's concubines. This was an act of dominance and rebellion in the ancient world.
To
So
take
once again,
power, right.
Bible, interpreting the Bible.
Right. And Jordan Peterson did what you're talking about. Jordan Peterson did a presentation, and say what you will about Jordan Peterson, but he actually did a presentation about how there is, and he did
The hyperlinks.
Hyperlinks, right? There's 67,000 cross references in the Bible. That is mind blowing. That is crazy.
it's supernatural.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really
And the
is.
garments are in that story too, but you got to have the eyes to see in the context.
Right.
Because in that story, what does it say? After he uncovers his father's nakedness, after he sleeps with his mother, he goes outside, and here's me adding to in my interpretation. He comes out and tells his brothers, hey, Dad's a drunk. He's unfit to rule.
Yep.
It's our time to rule.
Right.
I just did this deed. You go in and do it.
Right.
And we'll split the world up amongst ourselves and we'll rule. He can't take on all three of us. Join me in this rebellion, brothers. And they refuse. Now that's where my interpretation ends. But when you get to the Bible, what does it say? That once he uncovered his father's nakedness, that Shem takes a garment, and him and his brother Japheth place it on their backs, walk backwards, and cover their father's nakedness. I said to Derek Gilbert on his show, and he's a big brain guy, knows his stuff. I said, I can't prove it, Derek. I said, but I think that those garments that are mentioned there are the supernatural garments from the Garden of God. I said, and it makes sense theologically. I said, because this is the symbol of kingship and priesthood and authority. This is the crown symbolically.
Right.
So if Ham was trying to take over the family, take over the authority position, how fitting would it be for them to take the actual symbol of kingship and authority and place it back upon their father, refusing the rebellion?
Right.
And he gets to typing on his computer, looking in logos and stuff, and he's like, you may be onto something, Justin. He said, when you go into the Hebrew, he said, it doesn't say a garment like the English translations say. He says, it says, they took the garment. It had a definite article assigned to it, so there was a specific garment in mind in that story. And how fitting was it that Shem, the eldest brother, the one that was going to get the birthright, the one that ends up getting the priesthood position, takes the garment. And then him and his brother walk backwards and place it over their father.
Right. Dude, there's something to the garment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
There
It's
really is
definitely
something to it.
spiritual, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but there's a
But
trail.
physical.
There's a trail.
Yeah,
of it.
it's both. I think something's going.
Yeah.
So it's
Jacob,
like, what is it, like
you see
actually
it in the 66 book canon with Joseph, because you follow it. Esau gets it right, and then Jacob ends up stealing them, because in that story where he wraps the goat fur around him,
Right.
the garments are there too. People look over it. What does it say? As the final cherry on top, it says that Rachel goes into Esau's tent and takes his special garment
Wow.
and places it upon Jacob.
I wonder if it's like a rock, a gemstone or something.
What are
Almost
your
Like the priestly ephod, you know,
Like a
the
talisman.
stones, many colors. And then you see it later, because now Jacob has stolen it from Esau, right? If you follow the canon.
Mm-hmm.
Well, who's the son of Jacob, whose name is later changed to Israel? He has a son named Joseph. And what does he give him? He gives him a coat of many colors. Beryl, onyx, topaz, jasper. That would be a
12.
multicolored.
Yeah.
right?
I wonder if
garment.
God's blessed those gemstones, and then they wear those gemstones or
There's
something.
probably
and they
power
took it.
to it as well.
Yeah.
And there is, and it says in that story, when as soon as Joseph is given this coat of many colors, what happens? He starts having prophetic dreams
Mm-hmm.
and visions. And what does he tell his brothers? He says, brothers, I have
Hebrew
visions that the suns, or the stars of heaven, which was the angels, the stars of heaven bow down before me. The wheat of the field bows before me. And you, my brothers, bow before me. You will be my servants.
They didn't like that.
And what do?
Tried to
They
kill
send him off.
Mm.
Yeah. And they take the garments from him, or at least a piece, because it says they took a piece of the garment and dipped it in blood and took it back to their father and said, this is all that's left of your son.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a wild beast got him. And then we see those garments, I think, in the book of Revelation. What does it say when Christ returns? He has on a powerful garment that's stained in blood, just like Joseph's garment was dipped in blood,
The allegories.
with the name on the thigh, the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And he says he rules with a rod of iron. That is the garments of power, the supernatural garments from the garden of God, and the staff of Yahweh, the Moses staff. It says he rules with a rod of iron. So symbolically in Revelation, Christ returns as the King of Kings, the Lord of Hosts, and he has on the supernatural garments from the garden of God and the staff of Yahweh, the rod of iron. So symbolically, I think it's painting that, you know, the real second Adam, the one with kingship, priesthood, and dominion, is here, and he's got all the symbols of authority with him.
Dang.
Right. I wonder if it contributed to Satan's pride, like having these garments, right? It's almost like I believe it's Isaiah, could be wrong, but it's where, you know, he basically is saying he's going to exalt himself above the stars of heaven. He's going to basically be bigger, better than God, and we know that that's false, but it's almost like these garments, when he was in that time, maybe was saying it around that timeline there, and he felt like he could just take authority, you know.
Yeah.
And when he's stripped from them, you know, he's super pissed off.
Yeah, that explains a hell of a lot of motive. That explains why Satan hates you.
The hatred.
The thing that he wore that was his symbol of kingship and priesthood and authority, this beautiful garment that made him something special, was taken from him and given to his younger brother that's weaker than him, that rolls into pig excrement according to the parable of the prodigal son. That alone would make Satan hate you.
Yeah.
And that same story in Isaiah, that's Isaiah 14. What does it talk about in that same chapter about Satan? It says, you were the most beautiful tree in the garden. Your branches went up into the heavens and was more beautiful than all the other trees of Eden. And the other trees were jealous of your beauty.
Right.
And what does it say Adam and Eve partook of? They partook of a tree.
Right. Wow.
And they enjoyed.
I know. Why are people so upset about the serpent seed theory?
I think
Because
it's
their
just
Sunday school teacher, like, apparently knows more than the Bible. Like, yeah,
Well, it really seems
fight
to
or
like,
flight.
it really seems to like hit people in the gut. At least from when we had Joy on, we talked about it. We got a few comments back. We got some live chat discussion going on, and it seemed like it's a theory that like should not be discussed, but it's I think there's something to it scripturally.
Oh yeah, and the thing is remove all of your preconceived notions, remove all your dogma and your teachings. Just read what it says, read what the extra biblical books say, and what does your discernment and common sense say. I'm guilty. When I first heard of this serpent seed, I listened to highly intelligent people like Michael Heiser and others that laughed at this theory, said it held no water, and they went into etymology and etymologically this cannot be true, and if he was of the serpent, and it would just come right out and say it. It doesn't say it, like I talked about earlier, and or the extra biblical books that just come right out and spell it out for you. Oh, it was written. The latest ones we have, like the Targums of Jonathan. It was like 600 to 800 years after the fact.
Right.
So therefore, it's null and void. Well, then, if that's the case, if that's the way you look at it, then you need to throw the entire Bible away. You think Moses was writing that in real lifetime? Mm-hmm. He was writing about creation and all these other things that happened thousands of years later. Right. So if you take that fallacy point,
very good point.
Oh, well, this book was written 800 years after the fact, so it's no good. Then you're going to have to throw the whole Bible away, Daddy.
Yeah, that's a fallacy.
And it's a nomenclature. So if you go in there, just remove, like I said, remove all those filters, all that dogma and teachings. It's hard. It is. But just read it for what it says and use your common sense. Read between the lines. Remember, Proverbs says it's the glory of God to conceal a thing. It's the glory of kings to search things out. Mm-hmm. There's so many warnings in the Bible, too. Cursed is the man who adds or takes away from this word. Why is the warning there if it can't be done? And if Satan could change and manipulate one thing in this text, would it not be to smokescreen his seed?
Mm-hmm. Sure, of course.
He's placing all of his end time bets on this. He's got all cards on the table. The chips are in on this bet. It talks about the Antichrist in the end times. This is where he's placing all of his bets. Of course he's going to try to cloud this and get people to reject it and laugh at it because he benefits from it. If it's true, there is no serpent seed, so you ain't looking at it. You know what I mean? You're not getting in his way of his plan.
Right.
But when you read that, it says that there was this tree and that Adam and Eve partook of it. And Isaiah 14, Satan was the most beautiful tree in Eden. His branches were glorious and extended into the heavens, and all the other trees of Eden were jealous of his beauty. It compares Satan to a tree there. Mm-hmm. And it says that they partook of this tree. And it says they ate in English. But when you take that word and you look into the Hebrew, that same word several times in the Bible is translated to enjoys. So if you take that word and put it in there, Eve partook of the tree, which Isaiah 14 compares Satan to a tree. And it says she partook of the tree and she enjoyed. Then she goes to her husband and he too enjoyed.
Right.
The serpent planted his seed, and then she took what she learned, the act of sex, and showed it to her husband. Yep. And he enjoyed it too.
And
two seeds were germinated that day.
Right. And he did eat, right?
And he did enjoy.
So that was the first homosexual act or something?
No. She had sex with the serpent. She didn't know what sex was.
Okay, I was like, dog. No.
And then so she went back and done it with Adam. Hey, let me show you this thing somebody just taught me.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
You're going to enjoy it. Trust me.
Right. And it's a real phenomenon that can happen where, two men can impregnate the same egg.
Yeah, you see it all the time. And so then you take that context. This is eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Every single curse that God ever gives out correlates to the crime. If your mother told you you can't have a cookie before dinner, and you sneak up and you grab one, you start eating, and your mother walks in, what are you going to do?
Right. Yeah.
You're going to cover where the transgression and sin was and where the shame is.
Exactly.
In that scenario, it's the mouth. So what happens? God shows up, and once they enjoy this tree, and God shows up, what do? They cover their private parts, because that's where the sin was. That's where the shame was. That's where the transgression was. Now look at the sin and the cursing. All the cursing has to do with sexual reproduction. If the sin was something they ate, they'd have been cursed with sour stomachs, rotten teeth, something that correlated with eating, not
gut.
sexual reproduction.
Mm-hmm.
All the cursings, what does it say? He will increase her pain in childbearing. She would have menstrual cramps and periods. He would curse. There would be a curse on her seed. There would be a curse on the serpent's seed. There would be enmity between her seed and thy seed.
Right. That's wild.
And then, yeah, I mean, all common sense logic points to this.
Right. Right.
Don't get lost in the weeds of, oh, etymologically, this word means this, it can't mean that, and throw all the smokescreen away. Use your common sense and your discernment. People can, like we talked about earlier, somebody can take a verse and twist it and throw all kinds of word salad at you and smokescreen and point you and get you lost.
Right.
Keep it simple, stupid. Yeah. I love Travis Garcia. He says that all the time. KISS. Keep it simple, stupid.
Yep.
I love that.
And Cain's name, etymologically, that means acquired. The name is so important. I mean, I'm sure all of us are fathers here. When we had our kid, that wasn't something we just said, we'll just name it this. No, that's something where we come up with 10, 20 different names, think it through for months. It's something we choose very carefully and with meaning. What loving mother names their kid acquired? Because he was acquired. And then you go to Abel. What does Abel's name mean? It means breath. Why? Because he was made in the image of Adam. Because God breathed the breath of life into Adam. He was made in the image of Adam. Cain was not, because Cain was acquired.
Wow.
And then you get into the book of John, he comes right out and says it, man. I mean, what else do you want? Cain was of the wicked one. And then Jesus has that conversation with the Pharisees. You are of your father, the devil, who was a murderer from the beginning. He's talking about Cain. And most people stop there. Keep going. You go back and forth. The response of the Pharisees is pretty damning. What do they say? And remember, this is the context. It's Cain. We were not born of fornication, like Cain was. We have but one father. We can debate all day long whether it was physically true or not. We cannot debate that this was the mind and set and the belief of those people. And then you had mentioned earlier, Taylor, the beguiled and all the sexual connotations to it.
Yeah.
Well, you go to 2 Corinthians 13. What's Paul saying? He's talking to the church of Corinth, and he says, I have a righteous jealousy. And this was the paradigm buster for me. This was the final nail in the coffin. He said, I have a righteous jealousy over you. I prepared you as a chastised virgin for one husband. But I fear that you will be beguiled.
Boom.
As Eve was beguiled by that twisting serpent.
Boom.
It's crazy, man. You know
how much more do you need, folks?
I know it, man. You know what's very interesting is there's a verse, and it's Proverbs 30:20, and it says, such is the way of an adulterous woman. She eateth and wipeth her mouth, and saith, I have done no wickedness. And so what's interesting is that word eateth is the same exact word used in Genesis.
That's Proverbs 30:20.
Yeah, and it's the same exact verb that's used in Genesis pertaining to eating the fruit. So we obviously see here that it's kind of, Proverbs is sharing it to be a sexual act, right? Or can be implied. And you know, they're writing it based off of what they know in Genesis, right? Like they're off that context, how they believe and see it, kind of like what you're saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I found that interesting as well.
Hey Doc, what was that verse you were talking about just now with beguiled with John?
Oh, the 2 Corinthians.
Oh, 2 Corinthians.
Yeah, Paul's talking to the church of Corinth. I think it's 13, 2 Corinthians 13. I think. I got it in the book. I'd have to look to be sure, but I know it's 2 Corinthians.
Okay. Yeah, that's all I need. That's just
Yeah.
fat. It's just fat. It's plain as
Yeah.
day. It's plain as
Yeah,
day.
he said-
Like you said, that
Yeah.
was the nail in the
The
coffin.
sexual connotation and everything. He said, I have a righteous jealousy over you. I prepared you for one husband as a chaste virgin, but I fear you will be beguiled as Eve was beguiled by that twisting serpent.
That's crazy. It's crazy, man. You know, and I really think this is what happened. I'm led to believe that this is what took place in the garden. It plays in with the fallen angel incursion. It plays in with Satan's agenda. It plays in with why Christ had to come into the, Seth lineage. It explains why Christ had to die. It explains a lot of things.
And why keep up with the genealogies? Why
Right.
keep up with this one
Right.
begot this one begot that one? Why remove Cain from those genealogies and have two distinct lines and mapping them the whole way if there was not this incident? And if this didn't happen, where is the serpent's seed?
Right.
What happened in Genesis 6? Angelic beings come down and lusted after the daughters of men and had sex and procreated. This is not out of the norm of our scripture, people. It's hook, line, and sinker script
Mm-hmm.
throughout the entire biblical narrative.
Right.
Why reject this and act this way and get so tore up when somebody suggests it and points it out? Because there's some spiritual warfare behind it. That's why.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They don't want you to see this. They don't want you to know this. The devil, he wants this obfuscated and wants you not to look this way.
I agree. And you know, the fallen angels, I feel like they had a meeting, or Satan had a meeting with the fallen angels. It's like, hey, I did this in the garden, and it didn't
Here's
work.
the blueprint.
And I'm screwed. And you know, we got to really try and screw this up here because, you know, he's going to crush my head, right?
Yeah. And the book of Enoch implies it. When you read in there, a lot of people look over it, but it says in there that the fallen angels became subject to the devil. It was his idea. He planted the
Right.
freaking thought in
Boom.
their head.
Right.
It
Another
says the
boom.
fallen angels, the watchers, became subject to the devil.
Right. He wants to tarnish the DNA, you know,
Because he
or-
wants his position back.
Yeah.
It's like, if I can't have it, I'll burn it down.
Yeah.
This was once my place.
So
I
fascinating.
was the king and priesthood and looked over this realm. Me and my children had it, and I was the king. It was taken from me and given to this lower being.
Mhm.
I can't have it back, so I'll burn the damn thing to the ground.
Yeah. Seriously. Seriously. That's what it comes down to, at least on a level that we can understand. You know, it's probably crazier and greater and
Oh yeah.
way more intense, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, but that's the easiest way that our little minds can understand this 10D chess game that's
Right.
going on.
Yeah. Wow. So we're kind of getting to that time, Doc, where I wanted to kind of, unless you guys got any other questions you want to get with him on, or wanted to kind of wrap it up towards, you know, are you filming a documentary? Are you still getting into that? Or
Yeah, I got several of them. I got two that I've got like probably 60 to 80% of them done.
Nice.
I just have to put it together.
Wow.
And this weekend, me and a group of people are hanging out and doing some more filming, and I think that's going to be some of the final puzzle pieces for the one that I'm working on.
gotcha.
But one of them is Biblical Bigfoot, and I'm kind of tying this narrative in, and then the other one is on the mounds. So I've been going around and getting drone footage of the mounds and interviewing people and compiling interviews and footage of some of these mounds and stuff.
Nice.
Wow.
That's going to be a pretty cool one. The Serpent Mounds
Yeah.
in Ohio are kind of gnarly.
Yeah,
I read into them.
I
a little
actually
bit.
have drone footage. I was kicked out of Serpent Mound. I took one for the team. They
Nice.
had signs everywhere, no drones, no drones. I was like,
Yeah.
Screw that.
Screw you.
I'm to ask for forgiveness and permission.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. I don't know if you guys caught it, but you know, the Pope, obviously, right? He passed away, but at his whole ceremony thing, there were guards with drone guns, like specifically meant for drones, right? And it could take them out of the sky. Boom.
Oh, damn.
Some sort of like EMP pulse or something. It disconnects it from the user, and so it just falls to the ground.
Wow.
It's kind of interesting. But so you said that you're going out, you're getting more film, or you're filming more. What are you? Is it where are you? What are you doing? So you're going to the mountains tomorrow.
Yeah, I come from there today to talk with you guys, but yeah, a bunch of us got together and we're up in the mountains in an undisclosed location.
Gotcha.
And,
right. Little LA Marzulli there.
Okay, LA.
Yeah. And
that's awesome.
so we're going out there and going through the woods, and I got a buddy that's a big squatch hunter, and he's got a place that he's took me to this more than one occasion, but he's gotten lots of pictures of shadowy figure entities and stuff.
Oh, wow.
Lots of really big tracks. He's even got some castings and moldings. We're talking footprints with distinct toe prints, and 22 inches long.
Oh wow.
11 to 12 inches wide.
I mean, dude, that's huge.
Some big feet prints.
Golly, what's Shaq walking around in the mountains?
Right? For real.
Yeah.
That's funny, man. No, that's cool. So you guys found some tracks, or that's been recorded a little bit. That's wild, man. Have you had any interesting experiences, on Bigfoot hunts or anything, or any type of experience out there?
I haven't. I've only been on 2 myself, but the guy that's took me out there, he's had quite a few, and he's told me, which, I mean, I've seen the tracks and stuff, and I've seen some of the structures and the huge trees that look like somebody just snapped and jammed into the ground and made X's and some crazy stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
But I've seen lots of footage and pictures from my friend, and it's wild, to say the least. It's something I can't explain. Now, is it the pictures and stuff that I've seen, are they, like physical flesh and blood? My point of view, they don't look that way.
Really?
But we get prints and stuff.
Right.
But you have a distinct silhouette, like shadow figure, that is the perfect outline of what we, call a Bigfoot. And they're usually peeking around big trees and looking at you. And it's just this dark silhouette that you can make out. And they're like, 8 foot, 10 foot tall. And he's got numerous videos and pictures of like this silhouette shadowy figure like peeking around
like perfectly peeking around, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's got hair coming out everywhere and really tall. And without fail, he says that he hears the clacking and the hoots, but the majority of all his images and videos that he's gotten is like Scott Carpenter. It's from his back trail cam. He has cameras mounted everywhere, carrying one and GoPros, and he always puts one on his back.
Smart.
And he said, and 90% of the time, it's not till he goes home and he's scrubbing through the footage. He's like, "Whoa, what was that?"
Creepy.
Backs up and then starts blowing it up. He's like, "Holy shit, it was watching me from behind."
Right?
Oh man.
Oh, that is crazy, dude. That's crazy, man.
And that's where it ties into, with my theory that I talk about in the book. If Esau was a serpent seed, and if the book of Enoch is true, their spirits are cursed to wander the earth, tormenting mankind and watching us. It says they would hunger and thirst and have all these carnal cravings, but they can't be, sensational, or what's it called, satisfied.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Would it not make sense that these spirits, if they could manifest in some way, that they would manifest in a familiar form that commanded power and authority and that they once walked around looking like?
Yeah,
To me, I mean, it makes sense.
I'm with you on that because I mean the thing that blew me away too in your book was
And
the
Bo's story.
Bo's
I know
story,
you asked about
dude.
that. I didn't even get into
Oh no,
that. But
it's
yeah,
it's perfect time. Let's talk about it real
Yeah.
quick because that story did blow my
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah, because he had this woman that reached out and was like, "Hey, you're into Bigfoot," and I've had many experiences with a Bigfoot, and actually formed a relationship with one. If you'd like to hear the story, and he's like, "Hell yeah, I'd like to hear the story." And this woman comes on, and she ended up coming on his show like 3 times. You can go to his podcast, the Bump podcast, and dig and find these episodes. But he talked to her like 3 or 4 times. And she said that one day she was walking her dog, and this was a woman. She was just a regular, good old girl. She wasn't no Hebrew scholar or even a Christian. So she hadn't read the books of the Bible, didn't know any of the stuff like we've talked about tonight. And said that her dog wouldn't poop unless it was like in the woods, like way back behind her house. So she said she had a path that she always walked her dog. And as she was walking her dog, she said she just felt like something was watching her all the time. And she heard hoots and knocks and all this kind of stuff. And she started telling people about it. And they're like, "Man, you probably got a Sasquatch back there. You should leave gifts." That's what people do. They leave food and different things and form relationships with these things. And she said, so I started leaving food and leaving gifts. And she said, I started noticing that they started disappearing. And she said, I had one spot that I always go to and leave food and gifts to this thing. She said, and they'd always disappear. She said, but after a while, she said, I got to noticing when I'd go back to check or put something else, there'd be gifts left for me in the exact same spot. She said, branches twisted together in figures and dead mice and just different things. It was gifting me things back. She said, and this went like that for several months. And she said, then one day, she said, I heard a voice. And she said, it wasn't audible. She said, it was in my head. It was telepathically talking to me, letting me know and thanking me for the gifts and wanting to know if I received my gifts. And she said, and I started communicating with this thing, formed a relationship with it. She said, after several weeks and months of going out in the woods and telepathically mind speaking with this thing back and forth and gifting with it, she said, it started conversating more. And I asked it to reveal itself to me. She said, and it was just this huge creature covered in hair from head to toe, what we would call a Bigfoot. And she said, I named him Harry. And she said, we just started talking about all kinds of stuff. And then we started talking about religion and God. And it said that it believed in God, that God was real.
Whoa.
And that, but Christianity had it all wrong.
Of course.
And it was twisted and manipulated. And she needed to read the Gnostic Gospels.
No way. Wow.
And started listing, these Gnostic Gospels. And then she asked, well, what are you? And she couldn't even pronounce the word right. She was saying El Bood or El Dude, or it was something like that. He was a El Dude or El Bloob. And so Bo started reaching out to Gary Wayne and other people, and saying, hey, is there anything that you've read about, big tall creatures or humanoid creatures, hairy creatures named El Boob or El Lube, or something like that? And he said, Gary Wayne wrote him back and he said, I've heard of Eliud.
Goodness.
And he said, if that's what you're talking about, he said, there's many references to the Eliud. He said, and the Eliud are the offspring of the Nephilim. He said, the Nephilim are the offspring of angels, but the offspring of the Nephilim was called the Eliud.
Wow.
And so next time he talked to her, he was like, hey, I talked to somebody and the name, was it Eliud? He said, As soon as I said it, she perked up. Yeah, that's it, Eliud. And I've talked to him since we talked last, and he said that he was a Eliud and he was seeking redemption.
Oh my goodness, dude.
Can they be redeemed, though, is the question.
Yeah. So then he told her, what the Eliud was and what the Nephilim were and the fallen angels. He said, I explained all that stuff to her. He said, and I told her, I think you're being deceived. I think this is something demonic. It's not something good. And it's telling you that the faith is bad and you need to read these Gnostic texts. I think it's trying to deceive you and lead you astray.
Of course.
He said immediately she shut off, become mad, got defensive, and said, no, Harry's my friend.
Yeah, Harry's
Oh my goodness, lady.
Demons aren't
He's
your
been
friend.
good to me. He's revealed all kinds of things to me and helped me. And
That's how
no,
they get you.
you're just part of that Christianity, narrow-minded people that Harry talks about.
Give me a
You're the
break.
one deceived, and I don't want to talk with you anymore.
Oh, wow.
And she shut off communication, and he's not talked to her since. He said he's reached, last time I heard, he had reached out to her and tried to check in on her and talk to her and stuff. And as far as my knowledge, the last time he reached out, she told him, do not contact me anymore.
Wow.
Yeah, Harry probably ate her and her dog.
Exactly, dude. That's what them demons do, bro.
It was Harry
So
talking.
it's crazy how that all dovetails into
does.
what we've been talking about today.
It
That
does.
reminds me of Lestraud's story. I believe Lestraud was, he did the whole Bigfoot thing for a while, and I think Lestraud was in the woods one day, and this voice like telepathically communicated, "If you stay, I'll show myself to you." And I think,
he said nope.
yeah, I think he
ain't ready.
dipped
I'm
out of there. Yeah, good for
Dude, when
him.
I used to go hunting,
I would have too.
I used to go hunting in Montana in the forest for a while when I was a kid. I used to go alone a lot of the times, and I used to go deep, like good couple miles, man. And I just remember, man, like just walking, I could tell there was normal animals around. There's like mountain lions, bears, all sorts of stuff. But I just always felt like there was something watching me, not every time I went out, but sometimes. And I got so creeped out as a kid that I was like, yeah, let me go home. And I just started running home. And I never knew why until I started talking about this stuff and God showed me this stuff. And I'm like, dang, I wonder if it was really that or if I was just tweaking out, I just, now that I know looking back, like what could have been in that forest, I'm like, dang,
Yeah.
So
Our world is stranger than fiction.
it really
Right.
is.
It is. It is. The truth is stranger than fiction, right? It's crazy,
Right.
man. It's crazy.
It totally is.
Very fascinating topic, man. We really could sit here for another couple of hours, just go into it, man. And then maybe, but Justin, thank you for coming on, man. Thank you for,
man.
giving us your time tonight. Deeply appreciate it, man. This was an awesome one. I wanted to mention one thing too. Getting into this kind of stuff can be maybe confusing, maybe tough for like a new believer, right? To kind of wrap their head around. So I always kind of like to, at least for new believers, push them in the direction of the Gospels and to kind of build
this
a
is
backbone.
the meat.
This is yeah.
Yeah, your foundation has to be Christ, man. You got, if you're a new believer, yeah, man, these subjects are fascinating, but it's the meat.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
you have to start off on the milk. Know the gospel of Christ. Know why Christ came, what he did for you. Be able to defend your faith, why you believe what you believe, why Christ did what he did. That's your foundation stone. Everybody wants a nice, tall skyscraper, theologically speaking, But if you build that on sand, I don't care how beautiful, how tall it is, full of Nephilim giants and all this cool stuff, the first storm that rolls through, it's going to knock you down and lead you down a road of deception.
Great point.
Exactly.
Start
man.
with your foundation.
Yep.
Foundation is Christ.
Amen. Amen. And I love how you ended the book. I like how you wrapped it all into salvation. And God's here knocking at the door, man, and I really appreciate everyone in the community for Christians with podcasts and trying to reach the world in a way to spreading the gospel and spreading, the message of Christ and all of that, man. And I like how you really just wrapped it all up with that point towards right there at the end of your book. And it's important, you know,
Mm.
and appreciate what you do, man. I do.
I appreciate you guys, man. This has been a great conversation. I think, honestly, I could be wrong. And so if I'm misspeaking and somebody sees this, I apologize. Sometimes I make an ass of myself and assume. But I know you've read the book and it shows, and I think it's come out in this conversation. That's something me and you've talked about privately. You know, it's something I try to pride myself on. The guests I have on, I try to read their stuff because it comes out in the conversations. The conversations are 100 times better and deeper when you know the material and you've read it, and I think it come through in this conversation. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, man. And you've been an inspiration, not only to this show, but I'm pretty sure others as well. It's a big world out there, and your show's very respected. It really is. You put a lot of work into it, man. And for the folks listening, go check him out. And if you wouldn't mind, just if you want to send one last message out to the crowd and share, where they can find all of your work, we'll wrap it up and we'll move into an episode debrief.
All right. Hey, well, yeah, thanks, guys. Like I said, I don't want to play favorites, but it's probably been one of my favorite conversations.
Oh, yeah.
But definitely appreciate what you guys do, and it's even inspired me. When I get notifications that you guys are live, I try to tune in if I ain't doing something, and you inspired me to get some really festive wardrobe.
I love it.
I started getting me some crazy hats myself. My Nephilim giant skull was rocking my toilet paper roll hat.
Nice.
No, I love it.
That was because of you guys.
I love it.
Nice.
I love it. I have way more tinfoil hats to start making back here. And
Nice.
I've already been looking up Star Wars helmets and stuff. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, bro.
It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. It's a problem. It's a problem.
Yeah, it gives you. Oh yeah, he's got the glasses now. She.
Right.
Yeah.
He's
got the Prometheus lens.
Right.
It is. He almost looks like the guy from the movie The Watchmen.
I was thinking Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Oh yeah.
This is backcountry.
Right.
That's a great.
He's on the adrenochrome over there.
Right.
All these damn lizards.
That is awesome, man. That is awesome. Well,
Thank you guys. I
appreciate
appreciate it, man. But yeah, anywhere you consume content, guys, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, all that good stuff. Just search up Prometheus Lens Podcast. The website's PrometheusLensPodcast.com. And the book, you find it exclusively on Amazon. You get the ebook for $10, the paperback for $20. And I ordered a large shipment of copies. So I have a large box of these on hand. If you want one, you can go to the website. I have details to like my PayPal and Venmo and stuff like that. If you want a signed copy, you can send me some money that way. Send me your address. I'll sign one and get it to you. And I actually have a lot of goodies now that other people didn't get. So it profits sometimes being late. But I got custom bookmarks like themed on the book and some stickers and stuff like that. So anytime you order a book directly from me, you'll get some extra goodies.
Awesome.
I know I asked you this last time, but is there any plans for an Audible book coming soon?
Yeah. I've already recorded it, honestly, because when I was editing the book, I was reading it to myself through my mic.
Wow.
So I just have to go through and edit it and compress it. And
so you're reading it?
Nice. Yeah.
Oh, dude, that's awesome, man. That's so cool.
Nice.
Yeah, I can't afford to pay nobody, brother. I'm working now.
Yeah, I hear you, dude. I hear you.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So yeah, your website will be in the description, along with your YouTube channel and an Amazon link, for the book, man. But
thank you, man.
Appreciate you again, dude. I can't say it enough, man. But Taylor's gonna break us out in a little prayer here, and then we're gonna move over into the next segment.
Yeah.
Father God, thank you that we could have this podcast tonight, and that we could get some wisdom from Doc Brown here. And I just thank you that we're able to just kind of pick apart everything and kind of put the puzzle pieces together of what you're trying to tell us and the world, and just expose evil for what it is. And I just pray that we seek you above all things in these honestly last days that we're in, and that we will continue to have wisdom, discernment, and just as we go venture forward and pick apart these things. And in Jesus Christ I pray, amen.
Amen, man. Amen. Justin, hope to see you again in the future. Folks, Doc Brown, everybody, go check him out.
Well, thank you guys. Appreciate it. Torch is high, guys.
Torch is high, baby. Man, it's always good having Doc on. Doc Brown, everybody. Good guy. Awesome show. Awesome YouTube channel. Awesome author. Everything. He's really I feel like he's at the point in his life where he's just going hard on all of this stuff. The documentaries that he's got in the works. I'd love him to start working on a second book, to be honest with you. Maybe get into the garments, man.
Oh, yeah.
Make a book on the garments, man. Oh, man. Pretty cool. Folks, his YouTube is in the title and in the description below. You can check it out there, too. He's got a website and all that other stuff. You can check out his book in the description below, too, as well. Man, he brought a bunch, his book's just not all on Esau. It's kind of like we talked in the episode. He built a great foundation. It was something that he wanted to do, to tie a bow on everything at some point, with Esau, and to help you kind of understand the perspective that he's coming from. What we didn't get into that I'll cover is that there's there's science behind the Bigfoot phenomenon, right? What I mean by that is, scientifically, someone can have hair all over their body, right? Scientifically, someone can be a wild man, right?
Right.
Perceived as one. And that is called hypertrichosis.
Okay.
Where you grow hair out pretty much out of every pore. And it's congenital, and it's, genetic and all that kind of stuff.
A mutation, they would call
Yeah,
it. Right?
it's like the real life Wolfman, right? If you remember cracking open, we're 2000 kids, right? So I remember always digging into the Guinness World Record books.
Right.
You flip through the pages a little bit, you'll see the most hairiest man in the world or something like that. He has this condition, right? And but yeah, I wanted to cover that's a real thing.
Yeah, you know what? There's that kid that Brian Demon Erasers was talking about that has hair all over his face, and he's famous right now in India. I can't remember his head yet. Indian
Wolfman.
hairy kid. Yeah, I just want to look him up real quick.
Let's share that with the YouTube.
Yeah. Let's see. Indian hairy kid. There he is.
The Wildman thing is kind of trippy too, right? You've got culturally and traditionally, throughout the world, you've got these traditions too that are played out, and these Bigfoot looking dudes, running around parading, trying to steal women, right? It's so mind blowing. You got the LEU thing too at the end, was nuts, huh? The LEU.
Oh, geez,
it's nuts. Oh, there we go. We got me on there.
Can you see me? Can you see it?
I can see it.
This is the hairy dude.
That's the hairy guy. Wow.
That's the hairy guy.
So attractive.
He looks like a dog a little bit.
Someone would marry that guy.
Really?
Yeah.
I shouldn't say, that's so messed up.
No, I mean, there's someone out there for everybody, man.
I mean, it's got to be, they call it a mutation, they call it a disorder.
Something
it's
wild.
It's like a genetic part of his lineage that probably just peeking through.
It's a serpent seed, bro. No, I'm just kidding.
Crazy.
We got into that too a little bit, it's interesting, coming down to the meanings of the words and seeing the correlation between Leviticus, Genesis, Proverbs. There's these things that share correlation with what took place in the garden, and it really set off this seed war, man. The Bible's clear on the generational tree.
His
And it,
verses that he hit right there, I was like, man, I got to write those down because we've
yeah,
skimmed through it so many times, and it's clear the beguiled statement in Corinthians versus Genesis in the garden, and the Proverbs 30:20. I think maybe you brought that up, the eating the fruit. Um, yeah, that's dude, it's plain to see. Like you guys
yeah,
kept
the
saying, the
beguiling
Bible,
and then the eateth and then gave to her husband to eat,
right?
the nakedness.
Yeah,
There's these words that are play on in such a way to where symbolically their meaning has a certain nature. The
yeah,
Bible helps you understand what that nature is.
right.
And I love kind of how we tied that in a little bit.
Yeah, I
And
mean, it's just so fascinating how these scholars, people like Michael Heiser, it just goes to show you
now they're
how
discriminated. I mean, we're discriminated
well, yeah,
against. Like even, Doc is discriminated
right.
in a way.
But it goes to show how in depth the Bible is, how complicated it is, and how versatile it is. Like you really
A
have
lot
to
of
keep in
layers.
a lot of layers, man. You
Right. A
can't
lot of
just
layers.
stuck in the intellectual mud or whatever it is that L.A.
Right.
Marzulli likes to say.
Or what, is being taught universally. Like not universally, but
But yeah,
at universities and stuff.
well,
Like you've got this
both.
educational part of Christianity, which I have my views on education in general. It's a tough thing to kind of discuss because education, it looks just very similar to how you would create
Indoctrination.
indoctrination camps. And I'm
Mhm.
like, man, I get that. I'm not saying what they're preaching in school is necessarily wrong. But when you've got things represented in the school system that appear as fact when they're not,
Yeah. Hmm.
now I question, what are we trying to do here?
What's the agenda?
Are we teaching education, or are we teaching um, a groomed and a believing lifestyle and how to believe?
Indoctrination. Absolutely.
It's very fascinating, man. Very fascinating.
One
I
of
had a
those
lot of
things.
fun with this episode, man. A lot of fun with this episode, man. I want to try and get Bo Kennedy on.
Oh yeah, dude, that's a cool story.
Yeah, he's been on the confessionals. He's been on a few big platforms, and when he was on the confessionals, he was getting into Lilith,
Mm.
and which I kind of, to me, I see. This is so funny, but this is perfect. I see Lilith as the alien queen from the movie Alien.
Okay.
It's the mother of all of the,
Demons.
right, the Eliud, the Nephilim,
Now was
whatever. It's kind
Lilith
of like that demonic motherly vibe.
right? Was
You know,
Lilith Adam's first wife?
I don't know. I don't
This is
know
the
what.
thing
See,
about
see,
that.
see. I don't.
What the
I
hell is
haven't
that?
discussed this with anyone. I haven't talked. I don't know anything about this.
I heard that and I'm like, that doesn't make any
So,
sense.
so when I hear that, I'm like, I don't know. Like the the Bible implies something different,
Right.
and it says something different. So what are you meaning?
Yeah,
You
I'm
know,
so confused when I heard that. I'm like, I immediately was
break it
suspicious
down to
about
me,
it.
because there's got to be something that we don't know
Mm.
to make you have those assumptions.
Right.
So very curious. Curious.
Yeah,
I'm
I don't
also
get it.
very curious as well, and this comes from Gary Wayne. The Genesis, what do they call it? Day 6, male and female humans were different than Adam and Eve
Right.
in the garden.
I was also confused about that.
So there's this as
People
well,
before.
which I don't know. I don't necessarily. I don't throw out,
Mm.
because I think there could be something to it as well, because there are some things broken down in Genesis that can line up that way. So, but we could have got into that with him, but which that would have been an interesting topic, because I think he even touched on it a little bit in his book too, and even in Mesopotamian Sumer writings, it talks about the blackhead people,
Hmm.
and so if you think about it, when Cain's casted out of the garden, he's out with them or the others or whatever. There's people there, clearly, right? This is interpreted by one side, getting into these were the other kids that Adam and Eve had, that the Bible doesn't say, by the way.
Interesting.
Or they're the day 6
Right.
race of people.
Mm.
And, Cain went out and built cities, right?
Mm-hmm.
He had a lineage. There's a lot of ancient wisdom there and occult knowledge, for sure. We know that that's where the snake brotherhood, I'm sorry, came from. We know that that's the bull cult, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That I think it was a religion where they were doing stuff, with the pyramids, the ziggurats, all this kind of stuff. There's this ritualistic sacrifice, that takes place. It's all weird. It's all really weird.
Yeah,
And I think
especially
it all comes from Cain.
Yeah, Doc talks about the mark being a horn and that Cain was hairy as well. It's like, man, dude, the story just keeps getting just
Oh, yeah.
deeper and
That painting's kind of wild, right?
oh yeah, the Sistine Chapel, right?
Yeah, the Sistine Chapel's
Okay.
kind of interesting.
I'm gonna have to look into that.
So much fun, man. So much fun. Folks, we appreciate you being here. We wanted to give a few shout outs.
Yeah.
Wanted to give a few shout outs this episode. We'll try and do this, every episode, but if we forget, forgive us. But yeah, Jesse, you wanted to give a shout out. Baby.
Yeah, I'll give a shout out to this guy. I saw him on he commented on Spotify, and I hope he left a 5-star review. If he didn't, how dare he? No, I'm just kidding. But
how dare he?
How
you
dare
still have
he?
time. You can change it.
He commented on Spotify on number 36, the Demon Erasers episode, and he said his name is shout out to Alex AT. He said this episode really hit me, fellas. I've been in the process of fully getting my life in line with God, really reaching out after being lukewarm all my life. Thanks for the podcast. So shout out to Alex AT. I hope you find some inspiration to get closer to God through the podcast. That's awesome. That's how kind of what's going on with me in my life right now. So cheers, brother.
Amen,
Good on you.
dude. Amen, dude. Yeah, and I want to give a shout out to Crypto Grady. Appreciate you. Appreciate you. Love the support. You comment a lot on all of our stuff, and we appreciate it. We see the love that you have for us and everything, and we have that love back. And we're gonna keep doing what we're doing. We're gonna keep our journey strong, and you'll see everyone still tuning in. You'll see episodes Wednesday and Saturday. And we've been pretty consistent with that for the I'd say past 6-7 weeks or so now. So we're on a good rhythm, and we'll drop some interesting stuff throughout the week if we have time.
If we have time.
But if you haven't done so already, smash that subscribe button, like the show, share it with your friends, comment on the episode, please. And if you're not on YouTube and you're on the audio side of things, check us out on Spreaker, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. You can find us pretty much on all things social media. And, that's a wrap. Appreciate you, Justin, Doc Brown. Love you, buddy. And, folks, check out his book. Check out his material. And he gets a lot of cool guests on his show. So, but we appreciate you. We're going to see you next time. Peace and love, everyone.
See you.